Adani Wilmar.
A multi-billion-dollar company, Adani Wilmar Limited is a joint venture between the Adani Group of India and Wilmar International of Singapore. What drives Adani Wilmar is its vision to be a globally admired leader in integrated agribusiness with a deep commitment to nation building. It aims to be known for its scale of ambition, speed of execution and quality of operation. Honoring its promise to give India the best foods, Adani Wilmar Limited has a range of food products under the famous brands. It has also given India its #1 edible oil brand, Fortune. The commissioning of India's very first port-based refinery at Mundra, Gujarat, was the stepping stone in Adani Wilmar's success story. The availability of cutting-edge infrastructure and its proximity to consumer markets made it a good choice to bridge the logistical gap between plants. Today, the unit also houses India's largest oleochemical plants that produces glycerine and soap noodles for pharma, cosmetics and rubber industries.
Who know that one of India's largest food companies is always thinking big and doing better. I'm confident that Adani Wilmar is ready to take new challenges, is steadily bringing innovation in food products and growing to transform the food industry in India. Thank you, Adani Wilmar, for a healthy, growing India.
Castor. For most, a seed which grows into a castor plant. For us, a seed which grows into saplings of thoughts, to a plant of sustainability, to the branches of opportunity, to the fruits of innovation, to nurture an industry. The Giant Agro Group has proved that when nourished with ideas, a castor seed can grow into a giant industry. An industry that can develop the needs of the future. An industry that can expand its arms to reach diverse sectors across the globe. This is India, the global market leader in production and supply of castor seed and castor oil. The NK Proteins Group of Company is a strong and emerging front-runner in the manufacturing and export of castor oil and its derivatives like hydrogenated castor oil, 12-hydroxystearic acid and ricinoleic acid. Our production plant is located at Kadi in Mehsana district of Gujarat state, which has the world's highest castor seed yield in kilograms per hectare. Our corporate headquarters is located in Ahmedabad, one of the country's most vibrant and important cities. With more than 2 decades of industry experience under our belt, we serve our customers around the world with high-quality products at competitive prices and prompt deliveries. Spread over an area of around 1 lakh square meters, our infrastructure boasts of 6 massive silos, 12 seed crushers for extraction of oil, oil decanters, vertical continuous solvent extraction plant, energy-efficient hydrogenous plant, and an in-house quality control department with most advanced equipments like GLC and Carl Fisher. And our vision is to be the most competitive, reliable and preferred supplier of the full basket of castor oil and its derivatives around the globe.
This is Hengshui Jinhua Chemical Company Limited of China. We are devoted to the research and development of the bio-based materials to provide the world with green, eco-friendly, high-performance materials. We're one of the most important consumers in the world. We convert nearly 100,000 metric tons of castor oil by advanced technology to the product which is widely used in all aspects of our life. Welcome to Hengshui Jinhua Chemical Company Limited.
Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to all our friends and dignitaries, depending on the time zone you are joining from. A very warm welcome to all of you at the Global Castor Conference 2022, organized by the Solvent Extractors Association of India. I am Harshil Kamdar, and it is my privilege to anchor the event for this August audience. Thank you, SEA, for this opportunity. We are glad to inform you that more than 500 participants from 25 countries have registered for this conference. We would like to thank our speakers and panelists for sparing their valuable time and gracing the event with their presence. We look forward to their insightful views and intriguing discussions. We would like to express a gratitude to our dear patrons. Without their support, we would not have been able to pull off this event. A big thank you to our title patron, Adani Wilmar Limited. Special thanks to our platinum patrons, Giant Agro Organics Limited, NK Proteins Private Limited, Gokul Agro Resources Limited, Hengshui Jinhua Chemical Company Limited, Gokul Overseas. Special thanks to our general patrons, Royal Castor Products Limited, Castor Girnar Industries Private Limited, the International Castor Oil Association, also known as ICOA, Dr. Amin Controllers Private Limited, Geochem Laboratories Private Limited, Jux Castor Products Private Limited, Oswal Agri-Impex, Shivam Agro-Processors Private Limited, Kisan Agro-Product Industries, and National Commodity and Derivatives Exchange Limited, also known as NCDEX. A special mention to our media associates, and we thank them for their support always. A big thank you to Oil World, Commodity World, and RK Singhal. We would like to sincerely request all our speakers and panelists to adhere to the program's schedule. Thank you. I would now like to invite Mr. Chaturvedi, the President of SEA, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Harshal. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all my friends and dignitaries, depending on the time zone you are present in. Friends, we're meeting after a year, and in this time we have seen first the ebbing and then the resurgence of COVID. I'm sure many of us have lost close friends and acquaintances. I have lost many to the Delta variant, which created havoc worldwide. The current Omicron variant seems to be relatively non-violent, and it seems the worst may be over of this pandemic. However, we should not lower our guard. We are sure this tough phase in our lives has made us much more resilient, and we have weathered the storm remarkably well. With life and business gradually becoming normal, it's time to recalibrate and readjust to the new normal. It gives me great pleasure to reconnect, albeit virtually, with old friends after a lapse of almost a year. We welcome all the delegates in today's 20th Global Castor Conference webinar. We also warmly welcome Dr. Vijay Paul Sharma, incumbent chairman of Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices, popularly known as CACP, who has graciously consented to share his experience in his keynote address on mega trends, challenges and opportunities in food and agribusiness. Dr. Sharma is an eminent agri-management expert and policymaker, and we look forward to hear and learn from his experience. Let me assure Sharma-ji that castor farming is in the forefront of the campaign of realizing our Prime Minister's vision of doubling farmers' income. We welcome and look forward to hear the views on castor market dynamics from our old friend Ravi Shahid from USA, Mr. Wong from China, and the beautiful Vivian based in India, Mr. Henry Lamy, and of course my old colleague Shailesh Bhalda and Thomas Milkey, and the distinguished panelists on the price outlook for 2022. This conference has indeed grown in stature over the years, and even COVID has not been a deterrence in organizing this webinar. I'm sure we have seen the last of the virtual webinars, and next year we would be meeting each other physically and reconnecting old ties. During the calendar year 2021, India's castor oil exports has shown remarkable resilience, and we reached a record figure of 686,000 tons or 0.68 million tons compared to 6.58 lakh tons in the previous year. So there has been a growth in castor oil exports in spite of the fact that we were struggling with pandemic. The export earnings have increased by over 25%, demonstrating a reasonably strong global demand. This is commendable achievement and shows the strength of our industry. And even in the face of COVID during the last 2 years, we have not slowed down. Friends, we are glad to inform you that compared to other oil seeds, the yield of castor seeds in the country is much higher. Sustained efforts by agri-scientists in successfully developing a large number of hybrid varieties which can give much higher yield per hectare have actually borne fruit. However, due to insufficient knowledge of good agricultural practices amongst many farmers, the average yield continues to be low. In view of this, in 2017 launched Castor Yield Improvement Project, and we have succeeded in raising the productivity in our model farms. This year, the project was expanded and we have created nearly 500 model farms across the states of Gujarat and Rajasthan. Provided to these farmers good quality seeds, fertilizers and pesticides, and also monitored these farms through highly experienced scientists and motivators who continuously guided them on good agronomic practices. Castor farmers were shown these model farms to showcase how productivity can be raised. I am pleased to inform that more than 25,000 farmers, and that's a big number, are connected through the model farms and have actually greatly benefited from their visits to our model farms. And I'm sure this is going to be a game changer as far as yields are concerned as we go forward. We are happy to mention that against average productivity of 1,700 or 1.7 to 1.8 tons per hectare, the productivity in the model farms we are developing is much higher at 5 tons to roughly 7 tons per hectare. And along with this, we have done intercropping with groundnut or cotton. As a matter of fact, we are showcasing to the farmers that doubling their income need not be through higher prices alone, but by improving productivity and intercropping as well. I would especially congratulate the progressive farmers involved in the model project, as well as our team involved in developing and nurturing these model castor farms. In fact, I would be happy when our castor model farms are now being talked about in the policy making circles, and our suggestion of intercropping castor with groundnut probably will be implemented at the highest level of this land. We have also requested agricultural institutes to develop seeds of shorter duration variety so that farmers could have an alternate sowing pattern to enhance their income. In fact, I was happy to note that Hyderabad, the Castor Research Institute, they are seriously working on this. In fact, the lady director yesterday, when we had this meeting with the Prime Minister, she actually expressed that she's working on this seriously. Further, to objectively assess the results of the model castor farms, we continue to use the services of an independent auditor, Messrs. Mart Global Management Solutions, who would also be presenting their findings during the sessions for the benefit of members. At this point, I take this opportunity to thank members and also our partners in the international trade and ICOA, who have extended financial support for the project and hope the same would continue in future as well. The association has, since the year 2018, started Shri Vittal Das Ji Udeshi Castor Innovation Awards in memory of one of our stalwarts of our industry. And we will be presenting 4 cash awards and certificates to castor seed progressive farmers for consistent high productivity in castor seed. Also, as usual, Messrs. Agribusiness Systems, popularly known as AgriWatch, has on behalf of the association conducted castor crop survey for the current upcoming castor crop. The crop estimates will be presented later during the day. We compliment them for the same. Friends, our issue in terms of increasing the derivative exports still is not fully implemented, and we feel our industry would make all-out efforts to increase the export of castor derivatives. Friends, we look forward to an interesting next 3 hours and learn from the experts from the world. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much for your opening remarks or welcome remarks. I would now like to invite Mr. Abhay Udeshi, the chairman of the SEA Castor Seed Council, to deliver the initial remarks. Over to you, Mr. Udeshi.
Thank you, Harshal. Professor Vijay Paul Sharma, Chairman, Commission for Agriculture Costs and Prices, Government of India. Dear friends and respected dignitaries, I heartily welcome to the 20th Global Castor Conference. This August gathering includes prominent personalities of the castor industry from across the world. The annual conference has its special place amongst the castor fraternity, providing the right platform to exchange information and knowledge of this vital product, castor oil. The world has changed since COVID, and we are all meeting virtually again, which has been the new reality with most meetings and conferences across the globe. Hopefully, we shall meet in person at the next conference. Castor oil has a history of taking its participants on a roller coaster ride, surprising and shocking them all the time. This time, we are seeing more volatility and with swings either ways of $25 to 25 on a daily basis, but the market scenario can change from $100, 150 plus minus in a matter of few days. Anything happening in the world, be it weather, geopolitical, economics, which impacts other commodities, has a direct relation to castor pricing. The global pandemic shock took the world by storm, which we all believe we are all coming out of it. But now, with the Ukraine-Russia issue, the uncertainty factor continues, resulting in continued volatility. 3 decades after the Gulf War, this is the first geopolitical event of a magnitude which can have global ramifications. Governments across the world react differently to such events. With USA and most NATO countries having put severe sanctions on Russia, we all need to be a bit cautious with the geopolitical developments in the coming days. The demand for castor oil is growing by over 10% per annum in real terms during the last 2 pandemic years, with the growth coming from all over the world. This is commendable. In the current year, the castor oil exports for the year were about 700,000 tons against 650,000 tons in the previous year. India has once again the reliability of supplying castor oil as per global needs. The castor oil pricing has increased in dollar terms, but is in tune with other crude oil prices as also global commodity boom arising from a liberal monetary policies adopted by developed nations. Given the current castor oil prices, I am confident that the Indian farmers will respond to this price signal and continue to feed the ever-increasing demand of castor oil. Castor oil, being a renewable resource, is key to finding some solutions for the world looking for lowering the global carbon footprint. It is hard to imagine that India has reached the 1 million tons of production milestone for castor seeds just over a decade ago, 2000. The credit goes to the agricultural scientists who have been developing better, high-yielding, disease-resistant varieties suited to our climate regularly. We must all acknowledge the work being done by the Sardar Datiwada Agricultural University, which has produced commendable results. The credit also goes to various organizations who have been supporting the farmers by making these good quality sowing seeds available and educating them for adapting suitable farming techniques. The productivity and the water conservation program of SEA has been doing well. Please be rest assured, the money spent on this activity is worth in keeping pace with the global castor oil requirements. More details of the program will be shared during our today's webinar. This year too, the crop estimates by AgriWatch will be of particular interest. The carry forward of the crop and the crop estimates, though considered as a known factor, is known to be an unknown factor on several occasions. As you know, the crop numbers for 2021 were revised downwards from about 1.9 million tons to about 1.75 million tons in the month of May. Considerable efforts continue to improve the reliability and the accuracy of the crop numbers. However, our efforts will be considered successful only when the projected numbers accuracy is consistent and vindicated by the facts at the end of the year. This always has been one of the big challenges. This year too, in a bid to recognize and encourage our farmers, we will be honoring the farmers by bestowing the Sri Vittaldas Ji Udeshi Innovation Award to the most productive farmers. We are also encouraging the upgrowing areas, new areas for castor farming in this year's award ceremony. As in the past, at least one of the awardees will be a woman farmer. I expect this year's conference, as always, will be informative, and the discussions and deliberations will be thought-provoking with useful takeaways for all the participants. I remain confident that by next year, the world will be a better place and we will meet in person in the heart of the castor seed growing world in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, with renewed optimism and soaring expectations. Thank you for your patient hearing. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Udeshi. Thank you very much. I would like to invite our special guest, Professor Vijay Paul Sharma, Chairman of Commission for Agriculture Costs and Prices, Government of India. I would not, repeat the introduction that Mr. Chaturvedi and Mr. Udeshi gave. So without much ado, please allow me to invite Professor Sharma to enlighten us on the topic, mega trends, challenges and opportunities, food and agri-business sector. Over to you, Professor Sharma.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, it's a great honor and privilege to be invited to this World Conference on Castor, and I'm delighted to be part of this event. So let me first thank Mr. Chaturvedi, President, Solvent Extractors Association of India, for his kind invitation. But let me tell you, when Atul asked me to deliver keynote address in this conference, it was a difficult situation for me because I have no expertise in castor, and you're all, experts in the field of castor. But, when Atul asked me to do that, it was difficult for me to say no. So that brings me here. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to talk about castor because, as I said, that you're more knowledgeable than me in this sector, but I'll talk about, the larger perspective of Indian food and agribusiness sector. And as you know that Indian agriculture is undergoing a major transformation for the last at least 2 to 3 decades. And, that has provided huge kind of opportunities to the sector, but also brought a lot of challenges. To deal with those challenges, or those challenges into opportunities. Before I start that, I think we must congratulate our farmers whose hard work and complemented by enabling policy environment and the support of the industry, we have achieved record production. You talk about any crop, and for the last 5 years, we have been, setting the new records. For example, 21-22 estimates show that our food grain production is going to be around 316 million tons, which is a record in itself. Whether it's rice or wheat, again, record output in 21-22 is expected. And more satisfying is in case of pulses, we were highly dependent on imports, and we were struggling at about 15-16 million tons for a very long time. And 21-22, we are hoping to achieve a production target of about 27 million tons, which will bring our import dependency to a very, very small number. Oilseeds, again, we are going to have record production, but that's again a concern because our dependence on imports is still very, very high. We spend about 70 to 75,000 crores of rupees on import bill. And I think we as an industry, including the government, should work on that sector and try to achieve self-sufficiency in the shortest possible time. In fact, Castor is a small crop in terms of its numbered, whether it's acreage or production. But I think it has a huge potential when we are talking about doubling farmers' income. So that's the one side of the story. We're very happy with the performance of our agriculture sector. Similarly, if you look at the GDP number, despite have a lot of problems, the growth in this sector was about 3.6% last year, and 21-22 is expected to be 3.9%. So it's a great satisfaction for all of us. And there was a major paradigm shift in our agri-food policy in 2016 when Honorable Prime Minister shared his vision of doubling farmers' income. And I think prior to that, most of our policies, programs, and schemes were driven towards setting certain targets in terms of production targets or achieving certain numbers. And if we were able to meet those numbers, we were very happy that we have achieved those targets. But probably we were not focusing too much on farmers' income and welfare. So I see a major, shift in our policy formulation and implementation, and even in a discussion in various fora, we are talking about farmers' income and welfare. So I think that's a good kind of a beginning. We are more concerned about not only the production target, but looking at the larger perspective of welfare of larger section of the society. As I said, that Indian agriculture is a part of the global, agriculture, and you can't remain insulated. And in fact, we have benefited from that. I'll try to, list few mega trends or the drivers which are driving this, the transformation in Indian food and agribusiness sector. And the prime driver is, the rising level of incomes. If you look at the post-reform period, our per capita income has increased quite significantly, both in the rural area. And this change in the rise in income has also influenced the way we consume. So our consumption patterns are shifting, and we are more, shifting towards high-value agriculture, whether it's the fruits and vegetables, or it's milk and dairy products, or maybe meat and poultry products, or fish. So the demand for high-value agriculture is increasing. So that means our production has to respond to the market signals. But we do understand that these are all perishable commodities, and in fact, they would need entirely different set of infrastructure, different set of institutions, and probably it's the private sector which can make a significant contribution in terms of tapping this potential of high-value agriculture. Government would be able to, the public sector would be able to, complement the efforts of the private sector. And the second is, I think, is the demographic features in terms of whether it's rising income. And in fact, we would be touching about, 10 billion by 2050 in terms of the global population. And when we're talking about feeding 10 billion people under serious constraints of, land, water, and other resources. So it poses a serious challenge for our agriculture, technology, R&D system, and the industry. Second is the urbanization, and whether we accept it or not, but the urbanization is going to increase, and when urbanization is bound to increase, that the kind of food stuff which the urban consumer would consume is different from the rural consumer. The third, which is important, is in terms of, the large chunk of your young population. And, this young population they have all aspirations, whether it's a food demand or non-food demand. And again, which is a positive development, is the increasing participation of women in workforce. And all these, demographic changes are really providing huge opportunities for the sector, more in terms of value addition and, in terms of making investment in post-harvest management and infrastructure. Third important change which is happening in the rural economy is the changing composition of rural income. Today, close to half of rural income comes from non-farm sector. It's not crop sector, it's not horticulture. It's typically your wages and other non-farm activities which contribute close to 50% of your total income. So that's an opportunity in the sense that maybe we can, take out surplus labor from agriculture and engage them in a meaningful way in other activities which are non-farm activities. So our focus has to be more in terms of agri plus something. So our focus has to be agriculture plus, the allied sector and non-farm sector in the rural areas. The fourth major driver or the trend is, globalizing trade. After in early 90s, there were a lot of apprehensions about, the impact of these, global trade on Indian agriculture. But globalization has provided huge opportunity to the Indian agriculture. And in fact, India has been able to increase its agriculture exports. And even if you look at last 10 years information, 10 years data, our agriculture exports have increased by more than 3 times. So that's a very significant increase in our agriculture exports. And agriculture is one of the few sectors which has trade surplus. Otherwise, we have a huge trade deficit. So globalization has, facilitated that, trade in terms of Indian agriculture, so that benefited from globalization. The fifth one is more in terms of, which has to be technology driven. Whether we talk about biotechnology or we talk about, newer technologies in terms of, artificial intelligence, use of, smart agriculture or related kind of stuff. So our agriculture in future is going to be driven by these new technologies, and, digitalization would have important role to play in making your agriculture sector more vibrant. Infrastructure development, both in the rural area and the urban areas, it has improved quite a lot, and that has really linked your production center with the consumption centers or the trading centers, whether it's in terms of rural roads or maybe in terms of mobile connectivity or other rural infrastructure. So we have done pretty well on rural infrastructure, but still there is still a scope to improve that rural infrastructure. So once we have the basic infrastructure in place, I'm sure the private sector would have every incentive to make that investment in the rural areas, not in urban areas, in terms of looking at the rural requirements. Of late, large number of startups are, happening in agri space, and some of them are really very, very successful, either on the back end of your supply chain or front end of supply chain. So I'm sure that this decade is going to be, a decade of, startups and these, initiatives, particularly in the agri space. And again, I think industry would be able to facilitate that, transition in agriculture. Again, I was looking at some of these initiatives of the Solvent Extractors Association of India, and two things which, impressed me the most are, one is the focus on productivity improvement, and second most important is, I think, water conservation and improving water productivity, because nobody's talking about water productivity. To my mind, I think water productivity is more important than land productivity. So I think we must compliment your association for these innovative kind of initiatives. And when we're talking about this expanding population, we're talking this aspirational population, and we need to feed that population, as I said, 10 billion by 2050. So if we want to achieve that target, we need to address certain kind of challenges which Indian agriculture and the global agriculture is facing. So I'll focus more on Indian agriculture. And one of the major, the challenge or the constraint in Indian agriculture is, our farm sizes are becoming smaller and smaller, and they are fragmenting. So today, almost 86% of farmers have less than 2 hectare farm size. And to be very precise, 2/3 of our farmers have average farm size of less than 1 acre. And when I'm talking about this 1 acre farm size of 2/3 of our farmers, which is again located at not at one place, maybe at 3 or 4 places. And that makes it unviable to make any investment, whether it's irrigation development or it's farm mechanization or land development. So I think a major hurdle in agriculture is going to be looking at this land reforms and how do we deal with that problem of the small farm size and the shrinking and the fragmenting farms. The second important challenge for all of us, including the industry, is one is the low level of our productivity levels. And more concern is not only the low productivity levels, but the fluctuating productivity. So you can see the kind of variations in productivity levels. In fact, some crops have become more resilient in terms of the productivity growth. But still, there are large yield gaps. So there's a potential. For example, we have the varieties, we have hybrids, we have technologies, but still we are not able to achieve the potential of those technologies. So probably we'll have to work as a team and make it sure that we are able to improve productivity levels, reduce the variability in productivity level, and improve the overall profitability of agriculture sector. The third is the low irrigation coverage. So we will not be able to bring more area under irrigation, but the easy route is to improve water use efficiency, because today our water use efficiency is somewhere around 35 to 40%. If we are able to improve that water use efficiency to 50%, 60%, even with the given resources, we can irrigate more land. Another area is in terms of poor market linkages because of two reasons. One is the regulatory framework works are little restrictive in nature, which restricts private sector participation to a large extent. Government of India had taken some initiative, but they had to step back. But I'm sure that the states would be more proactive in terms of reforming their some of these acts and some of these policies which would attract more private sector participation. Another is the market intelligence and market information is extremely important, and I think that's completely missing on the agenda of whether it's a private sector or it's a corporate or it's a public sector. So we should all work towards providing market information and market intelligence services to the farmers so that they can make choices of where they should sell or where they should. Supply chain integration is taking place, but still, a large part of our country is still, outside the purview of this supply chain integration, and that's leading to, high post-harvest losses. That's leading to high wastage and associated kind of, problems in the post-harvest management. Overcrowding in agriculture is another problem. Today, we are talking about, close to half of our workforce engaged in agriculture. So on one hand, we are saying we have surplus people in agriculture, but on the other hand, when you talk to the farmer, they say labor is a scarce resource. Wages are very high. So I think we need to deal with this kind of a situation where we are saying there's a surplus labor in agriculture. On the other hand, the labor is not available. But I think the bottom line is that we need to bring on, take on the surplus people who are in agriculture, not by choice, but by compulsion. And as I said, the non-farm sector, whether it's the infrastructure related to agribusiness or some of the post-harvest infrastructure or management issues, which can create more job opportunities, or other non-farm activities which are closely related to the rural sector or agriculture sector. Resource depletion is going to be the most important challenge in terms of whether it's a shrinkage of your land or shortage of your water resources, or in terms of deteriorating soil health. And I think that has to be a main agenda in terms of our research and in terms of our, the industry initiatives where we are able to address these three, issues in terms of land scarcity, so that we have more, efficiency of land use, water scarcity, and the degrading soil health. The other element is, the climate change. And we have seen that, frequent changes in weather have resulted in very significant losses to the farmers in terms of lower crop yields, in terms of complete crop failures. So it's one is we look at the average numbers, but I think it's important to look at the distribution. For example, your average and rainfall may be a kind of a normal year of rainfall, But if its distribution is not evenly distributed, then you have a lot of issues. So climate change is going to have very, very serious implications for agriculture, not in case of India, but I think globally. And again, as I said, that we all should work towards finding some solutions to the issue of the climate change. So there are challenges, but there are also huge opportunities. And in order to exploit those opportunities, I think we need to focus on four important pillars of agriculture development. And I think that's true across all commodities, all crops, and Castor is no exception to that. And I always talk these four pillars of: one is the technology, second is the infrastructure, third is the institution, and fourth is the right incentive structure. So in case of technology, I think the basic focus has to be in terms of providing your quality seeds to the farmers, which I think your association has been doing it. So one is we need to have more hybrids, more varieties, which are which yield more productivity, which are more resistance to various biotic and abiotic stresses. But more important is to take these existing varieties and hybrids to the farmers. So ensuring quality seed to the farmers would solve our problem. And we have seen it in case of pulses. There are only two factors. One is the provision of quality seed, and second is the right incentives in terms of right kind of MSP for them have helped in achieving that near self-sufficiency in that. Second is the farm mechanization has to be a main agenda. As I said, that when we have huge shortage of labor and the wages are rising, but again, the small farm size comes in the way. So probably we'll have to find out some solution where the mechanization is more appropriate to our conditions. Similarly, other technologies, whether it's related to irrigation, water management, or it's related to value addition or post-harvest management. So our technology has to be a major driver for driving our agriculture sector. Second is we need to strengthen these institutions, whether these are institutions related to the extension services. And again, I'm happy that your association is doing a good job in terms of providing the right kind of information and extension services to the farmers. Similarly, there are issues related to the land reforms institutions. As I said, that land is going to be a major problem. Similarly, institutions dealing with markets or other supporting services that need to be strengthened, and they should become more vibrant. And the third pillar is, as I said, the infrastructure. And infrastructure, I would make a very clear distinction that the basic infrastructure has to come from the public sector, whether it's the roads or electricity or connectivity. But I think the associated that the post-harvest management and other market infrastructure has to come from the private sector. But unfortunately, today, the share of corporate sector in agriculture investment is only 3%. So with 3%, we can't expect the growth in this sector. So let's try that we take this 3% to 5% and 10% in the next 5 years. And I'm sure that we would completely change the profile of our rural economy. And finally, which is the most important component or the pillar, is the right kind of incentives. And I'm not talking about government intervention in pricing, but I think we need to create a system. We need to have a vibrant industry which are able to provide the right kind of incentive, right prices to the farmers. And I'm sure if we are able to work in terms of looking at these four pillars of technology, institution, infrastructure, and a right kind of incentives, we would be able to achieve that stated objective of doubling. So I think these were the few ideas which I just wanted to share with you, and I'm sure that delegations of this seminar would be quite important to all of us in terms of taking it forward. So again, thank you very much for providing me this opportunity. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sharma, for this insightful address. I'm sure the industry at large will benefit from your thoughts and insights. I think Mr. Chaturvedi would like to, express some of his thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. It was a wonderful presentation which you made, practically extempore. And I'm sure as we go forward, yesterday we happened to be in that Prime Minister's big meeting on agriculture. It shows that the trust is going to be on agriculture in a big way. And I'm sure agriculture in India would again become much more glamorous than what it is as of today. And I'm sure you will have to play a major role in the policy-making sphere as the CACP of the country, incumbent CACP of the country. My only one request to you, and which I made to the Prime Minister and the other ministers also yesterday, was that MSP over the years has only been used to incentivize. So I suggest once you are in the hot chair, you use it not only to incentivize, but also to disincentivize. So we don't end up producing more things which we don't want and producing less of what we actually want. In a nutshell, what I'm suggesting and requesting is oilseed needs to be given the right kind of trust and incentive. And I'm sure that will be a game changer as far as India is concerned, as our import bill on edible oil is concerned. Thank you once again for finding time to come and express your views. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Harshal.
Thank you, Mr. Chaturvedi. Before we move on to the next section of the event, we would like to share some special news which could be beneficial to the castor industry and market players across the globe. Let's hear the special announcement directly from Mr. Arun Raste, MD and CEO of NCDEX.
I'm very happy to be a part of this conference, Castor Conference 2022, which is taking place in India. I'm delighted to note that the conference is growing year on year, and we are getting international participation from countries as big as China, US, France, and Germany. Now, India has a monopolistic situation in castor business, and it is also good that our producers are benefiting because of growing castor business. As an exchange, we recognize the importance of this non-edible commodity, and we launched Castor Contract, which is enabling our producers and traders to help them hedge their price risk. Because of the importance of castor in our oilseed basket, SEBI has approved the NCDX proposal to launch castor oil contract. And I'm very happy to share with you all that we will soon launch the castor oil contract. This will not only enable our producers and exporters to hedge their risk, but it will also enable the importers in other countries to use NCDX to hedge their price risk through EFE route. Thank you very much. I wish you all a very successful conference.
Moving on to the next section of webinar. This session, Country-Wise Castor Dynamics, is a power-packed session with statistics by experts from across the globe. Let me introduce you the speakers for this particular section. From USA, we have Mr. Ravi Shahid from Acme Harvesting Company, USA. From China, we have Mr. Haixia Wang, President, represented by Ms. Weiwei Sun, also known to all of us as Vivian, from Hangshui Jinghua Chemical Company Limited, China. From Europe, we have Mr. Henry Lamy from Loire and Hangens, France. From India, Mr. Sailesh Balda from Adani Wilmar Limited would be sharing his thoughts. And of course, on a global perspective, we have none other than Mr. Thomas Melke, editor of Oil World. To lead this session, I would like to call upon Mr. Abhay Udeshi, the chairman of this SEA Castor Seed and Oil Promotion Council, to lead the session and invite and welcome our esteemed speakers. Over to you, Mr. Udeshi.
Thank you, Harsha. Great seeing all of you today at this Castor webinar. I would first invite Mr. Ravi Shahid of USA to give his presentation. Only one thing in mind, we have limitation of time, so we'll have to complete each of the presentations in 12 minutes of time. So please try to stay precise and give us your good presentation. Look forward. Yes, Mr. Ravi Shahid.
Thank you, Abhijit. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everybody, whichever part of the world you are in. It's my great honor to be presenting today at this World Castor Conference hosted by the Solvent Extractors Association. And I give my sincere thanks to Mr. Chaturvedi, Mr. Udeshi, and Mr. Mehta for giving me this opportunity. And I echo Mr. Chaturvedi's and Mr. Udeshi's sentiment that hopefully next time when we have this conference, we'll be doing it in a more physical setting where we can reconnect in the old ways that we used to always. I will start my presentation by giving a little bit of an overview on the castor oil consumption and outlook for the US. Talk about a little bit about the economy and also give a little bit of a perspective on the castor oil consumption outlook for 2022 in the US. Next slide, please. I'll club my presentation into 5 segments, talking about the US castor imports from a historical perspective, and also talk about some of the leading industry segments that castor applications go into, talk about US GDP, US economy outlook, and wrap it up with the castor outlook for 2022 in the US. Next slide, please. As you see from this data slide, from the US imports, which capture from 2012 to 2021, up to about 2019, I would say we had seen a fairly average overall demand or imports from a US perspective of castor and castor derivatives all combined to about 75,000 metric tons on an annual basis. But over the last 2 years, in spite of the pandemic, 2020 kind of, because of the initial lockdowns, it stayed at those numbers just because pretty much 1/4 of the year was depressed because of the pandemic related lockdowns as well as restrictions. But if you see 2021, US has quite a bit upstick in the consumption for castor and castor derivatives all combined by about 10 to 12%, in alignment with what earlier Mr. Chaturvedi and Mr. Udeshi talked about in terms of an overall upstick in the global demand as well. Next slide, please. The same is represented here in a little bit different format. So you'll see 2021 being the highest import year probably in the last 10 years, and I would say in the history of the US imports as well, primarily led by #1 castor oil bulk imports that were significantly higher than the previous years. Next slide, please. Now, shifting gears to the industry segments that castor and castor derivatives go into the US, you will see primarily it's being led by the polyurethane market segment, which comprises almost 25–26% of the overall usage of castor and castor derivatives. And then, of course, staying close behind is lubes and greases, case, and ink and pigments, and those 4 segments comprise almost about 70 to 75% of the overall consumption. 20 to 25% of the overall needs are taken up by rubber, plastics, nylon fibers, and pharmaceuticals. And of course, the rest 3 to 5% is all others. Now, shifting gears to the US GDP, as we saw, with the onset of the pandemic in 2020, Q1, when everything came to a standstill in the middle of the quarter, we saw a decrease, depression of about 5.1%. And of course, second quarter, which was the most impacted due to restrictions, lockdowns, and a lot of businesses, as a result of those two measures, shutting down or throttling back or operating at lower levels with a depression of about 31.2%. And then similarly, as the economy and things opened up, we saw a big jump in Q3 of 2020, giving us about 34% growth rate in terms of the GDP on a quarter-by-quarter basis. And then, as we see from a Q4 right up to Q2 of 2021, it was a steady increase from 4.5 to 6.7% growth. And then we saw a little bit of depression in Q3. That was, of course, due to the variant and the related, impact of that. But again, we saw a resurgence in Q4, giving us about a projected 6.9. With the second estimate, the final numbers have to be still to be finalized, but it seems like we'll end up Q4 about 6.9. And then there's a projection for 2022, which outlines GDP by quarter of about 2% in Q1 and 2.8, 2.6, and 2.4% Q2, Q3, and Q4 onwards. Next slide, please. This is a representation of the GDP in an annualized perspective. So we saw 2019 coming before the pandemic, GDP of 2.3%. And then 2022 at the end of the year on an annualized basis ended up with a negative 3.4. Of course, we saw a bump in 2021 as a result of things opening up and businesses starting to kind of go back to somewhat pre-pandemic levels in terms of their operations. And of course, aided by and mostly, I would say, led by the increase in a huge increase in personal consumption sector. And of course, the imports and export side of the equation was also positive, thereby leading to this 5.7% growth in the economy in 2021. It's projected to be, from a forecast perspective, to be about 3.5% in 2022, and then get back to the normalized rates of somewhere between 2 and 2.5% 2023 and onwards. Next slide, please. Other factors of the US economy that we need to look at: unemployment at this point is around 4%, of course, down considerably from the high of 14.7 that it reached in the second quarter of 2020. And it's expected to edge lower in Q2 to about 3.5% and hold steady there for the rest of the year. Inflation, which is a big challenge probably globally, of course in the US as well, has risen to 7.5% in January of 2022 versus 1.4% that it was in January of 2021. Inflation is expected to reach a peak of about 9% over the next 2 months, and then maybe taper off a little in third and fourth quarter. But overall, inflation is expected to stay at higher numbers. We still have low interest rates, but with the inflationary effects, and to check that and to put a little bit of brake into that, the Federal Reserve, I believe, is thought to be thinking about bringing in hikes in interest rate starting before the quarter ends, which is before end of March. And the expectation is there will be 4 hikes expected in 2022. Overall, there's a strong dollar, and that will continue to remain strong in 2022 as well. Next slide, please. Now we talk about all the other aspects, especially the wild cards. that we are seeing in the overall world environment from a geopolitical perspective as well. The first on top of the list in everybody's mind is the Russia-Ukraine situation and the crisis, and what impact that can and will have is still fully not clear, but we will certainly see some impact. A, the sentiment impact on the consumers. B, there will be impact, which we will start to see of the sanctions that have been and will be imposed as well. And third, we will see the direct impact in terms of what happens on the European economy as a direct result, and as it kind of reverberates and gets into the other parts of the world as well. So that still remains to be seen, but overall, it will certainly have an adverse impact on the overall economy. The coronavirus-related impact is still out there. We are 2 years into the pandemic, although there has been a strong resistance shown, as we saw from the Omicron variant, and the economy kind of showed its resilience to kind of overcome especially in the fourth quarter when we had extremely high number of cases, but still the economy kept on growing. So the expectation is that probably we may be entering a stage of where the economy is starting to, be resilient against the coronavirus, but any new variant can obviously change all that perspective. Overall instability in global relations based out of the first part of the equation, which is the Russia-Ukraine crisis, and also could lead to instability in other volatile regions of the world as well, and that can obviously impact the economy globally as well as the US. Of course, we got to keep an eye on the trade policies, US-China being top on the list, and what different or other policy or changes that come into play in 2022. And of course, with this current crisis in place, what other policies or shifts happen on the geopolitical level that can impact any trade policies as well. Last but not the least is the supply chain challenges, which the world is going through. And that's not likely to change in 2022 and may actually get a little more complex with what's going on in Europe at this point of time. So that needs to be taken into account and kept in the mind as well as we start to look at how the outlook of 2022 looks like. But overall, based upon what we know without knowing the unknowns, the economy is still going to be showing a good growth in 2022 in the US. From a Castor demand outlook perspective, the demand is expected to stay above normal for 2022. And that's primarily driven by the segments which have tried to find some substitute and alternatives for crude-based polyols or soybean-based polyols, depending upon what kind of application it is. And with crude oil being wherever it is today and likely to stay at those elevated levels, and at the same time with the pressure of the soybean and the pricing of all edible oils and especially soybean oil likely to stay at those levels, the consistent and increasing demand for those alternatives will be pretty strong, and so that will I would say keep the demand at the above normal levels for 2022 in the US. Of course, the volatile and high prices potential to impede the new demand and limit the new growth. That's because any kind of a new application or anything will look at from a pricing perspective. So that's where it remains to be seen whether Castor remains at the current levels or it has even a potential to go further up, and it'll be interesting to see what the panel after this round is complete will have to say on that kind of the question. On terms of the new applications, there is growth potential. Of course, it's tied to crude oil and soybean oil prices comparison. And with those two likely to continue to remain strong in 2022, we see some shift in new applications to incorporate Castor as well. Last but not the least is the sustainability. There's a big push from the consumers for sustainability in the Castor side of the equation. And it's good to see a couple of projects being undertaken by the industry, including Solvent Extractors Association, as well as other private entities in terms of the sustainable Castor project, as well as the success project. So what I think the industry or the consumer side of the equation would like to see is some kind of a comprehensive, consolidated, one kind of a sustainability platform that can become the unifying force, as well as one kind of a point where the world kind of can look at that as a sustainable platform for which every company can rely. So overall, the Castor demand is likely to stay strong and above normal in 2022. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Raviji. It's good to see the growth in the US demand. And it's also, you have, however, pointed out some of the wild cards that keep enlarging year after year. Some of the new factors keep coming. So we hope that in the near future, we'll reduce these wild cards and we have some stability in our industry. As it is a very volatile market, very volatile consumption and demand patterns. And these are all interrelated. But I think, and let's hope that more and more stability can come into our trade. Thank you very much, Raviji. I would now like to welcome the next speaker, I do not see him on the screen, but I see Vivian will be making the presentation on behalf of Mr. Wang Shui Jin. She's always been a good lady and shares a lot of information as #1 castor oil, user in China. And it's very nice to see you again. So here you go, Vivian. Go with your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. And this is Vivian from Hengshui Jinhua Chemical. I will, on behalf of my boss, Mr. Wang, to present his presentations. And this year, our present title has changed. It's not the China industries. We are talking about Castor industries together for shared futures. Next slide. First of all, I will give a short brief of our companies and the group. Hengshui Jinhua Chemical is subsidiary to Jinhua Result Steel Group. And this gentleman is our group boss, Mr. Du. And Hengshui Jinhua Chemical is very small enterprises is under our group. Next slide. And Jinhua Chemical is established in 2001 and specialized in the sulfuric acid. We have 2 world-class sulfuric acid production line. Our capacity is 50,000 tons, but the annual production in 2020 is 46,000 tons. Annual consumption of castor oil almost 1 lakh tons. Also, we cover more than 55% of the market. Next slide, please. And here I will talk some little bit about the Olympic. I think maybe you have to keep on attention in the February about the China Olympic. Maybe you like the sport, or maybe you are concerning about the castor oil demand has decreased due to some restrictions nearby the Beijing areas. Some industry has got closed. In fact, your castor oil, then you have to keep attention to Olympics. So this first first time releases for complete coverage of Green or Winter Olympics. Is such as transportations and wind power, energies, and is the first time of carbon dioxide represented zero carbon emissions. And all whatever shows is the green, the keywords. So what's the related of our Castor industries? Next slide, please. Let's take a look at our Castor industry, what's related to Olympic. From the first photo, you can see the skill retainers. Then you have to, this is the skiing acrylic skis on the holder of is through our Castor downstream product nylon. It makes the equipment in the worst climate to have excellent stabilities and reliabilities. And the second picture is a biodegradable plastic vertable and biodegradable plastic bags are helping to amplify the environmental impact of the Winter Olympics. So all through that is showing green as our castor oil is also is a green product and also is have common features is green, environmentally friendly and sustainable of development. Especially in China have announced in 2020 that by the 2030 is a peaking carbon emissions, by 2060 the carbon neutral emissions. So it's showing our China currently we are moving toward on it. Next slide. And this is the result related is our green castor oil. The result in 2021, China have given the best result. We have touched 3.4 lakhs tons in 2021. We had the import 3.3 lakhs tons castor oil. And China has increased use of account for almost 50% of global output. Next slide, please. And this is a castor oil price trend related to subsidiary assets price trend. I think this is the first time we saw the subsidiary assets price trend, how related to castor oil price. Here I mean not talk about the castor oil, what happened in 2021, but here I want to prove that you can see the red line in 2021 and the subsidiary assets price trend. It's similar is the following castor oil price is due to the relative balance between subsidiary assets productions and the demand. The price of subsidiary assets will be maintained is a reasonable range of fluctuations. It's difficult to appear in the industry profit of various competition situations. And also in the 2021, the average price of subsidiary assets about 4,400 FOB price. Next slide, please. This is the castor oil usage. Subsidiary assets is a major castor user. Is in 2021 have consumed 190,000 tons castor oil compared to 2020 has 90% increased. And the second main user is 12SA have to compare 2020 is have 14% increased. Especially here, much increased area is other SIMs and the formula agent. They have such increased 18% and others have 57%. Is because the first staff in 2021 that from the petrochem products, the price of petroleum have increased, the replacement to by the castor oil. Then, but the second half years, due to castor oil prices increased, then demand from adhesives and others, the castor oil have reduced. Next slide. This is the subsidiary assets productions. Is in 2021, the subsidiary assets production have to reach the highest record is 95,000 tons. And majorly because that green chemical trend promoted to expand the market demand. And secondly, and the polymers like PA410 and the PA510 is two complete biological biggest demand expansions. And the other green like plastic leathers, adhesives, green cars, antifreezes is also increased the amount of subsidic assets used has made a rapid development. While the car production has shrunk for reasons such as chips, but the decline has been offset and by the increased use of green product. And but from January and February, the subsidiary assets have temporarily tend to cool demand in 2022. But we believe the market quite only temporarily. But the full year of market demand may be the same as 2021. Next slide, please. This is our Jinhua annual productions. In 2021, we have productions and sales 46,000 tons. Compared to 2020, we had to sharply increased. It's not because we have to expand our capacity, it's only because our technology have to improve. And in 2022, will be the same level and expanded to as 2021. Next slide, please. This is a castor oil balance sheet in China. And 2021, the carry forward is about 66,000 tons. And it's a little slightly compared to 2021. It's normal inventory and it's normal inventory can say, but maybe that we have to see on not only castor oil inventory, we have to see that castor oil downstream product, how much inventory will be there is also in fact the castor oil demand coming there. And also maybe you have to respect the other, what's about the 2020, what's the coming the year, what's the numbers. But it's really hard to say at the moment. But I think because of castor oil market increasingly influenced by extra factors and pull to the market, the change the market itself. So now I feel in the recent years, the castor oil market not depend only castor seed supply or castor oil demand. They have many factors also in fact impact the castor oil price trends and castor oil demand as well. Next slide. In the last, we would want to give some visits and views. And is castor oil as the green product have many advantage features and can replace almost industrial materials made from petroleum product. And the global countries toward carbon neutrality, carbon emissions, castor oil has a wide range of applications. And the last multinations again have also increased efforts to expand in the green chemical industries. It's a big signal signs. As India accounts for almost 90% of the world production and China accounts for 50% of the world consumptions. So we are the one industries and one families. We need to take advance growing and development together to face the future hand in hand, that we believe. And we have seen also look after the Indian crop since recent year. The plant reproduction has following year by yearly, but the demand have year by yearly has increased. Whether in the future will follow China's, and because the oil India's rapidly economic development has a sharp increase of peasants living, and younger people don't follow the route into the city to work, and the labor cost also increased. And the government subsidies and the incentives wording not much profitable of the farmers. As China currently also very less crop, I can say, and Brazil also as well. But we have been machinization for harvest and sowing to try to change about that, try to increase the crop. But in India, we have not seen any progresses or intentions in this grant regard. So also our Indian farmers have the habit of growing castor, of course. There are especially geographic needs as well in Gujarat. But what about after 5 years and 10 years? The green product have the increased such area and the big stage is coming. But our in that castor seed productions is not much as following what the demands comes. So I think we are really need to think about that. This is our views, and thank you so much for your hearing, and thank you very much for give the opportunity to share our view.
Thank you, Vivian. I beg to differ on your last comments that you said that India is not doing anything. India today,
no, my word is not to say doing anything, only for the marginalization.
I'm sorry to say,
on watch.
but we are meeting the global demand. In my welcome address, I did mention that in a period of 10 years, we have almost doubled the crop.
I will keep on watching about that.
And we can assure the castor community here that India is here to meet the total global demand. So tomorrow, if the demand is increasing to 3 million tons as castor seed requirement, we assure you of providing you with that kind of quantities. Don't shy away from that. Please increase, and we are here with you to supply.
Of course, I wishes everybody will be with me here, but we have to keep worried in the future.
I think nobody can complain that they have not got castor oil from India. We have always given, maybe at a price, but castor oil is always available. So please keep that in mind.
But because castor oil is always available, but the price level for farmers is very good. We are very happy to see this price for farmers. But for our industries, you are also in the specific as a producer. Your industry use the castor oil as well. You must be knows for the industry this higher price was meaningful. Thank you.
Vivian, I'm sorry to say again, we have to be,
we keep discussing later.
We are in a competitive world, and we have to stay competitive, and that is also covered. I'm sorry I did not mention that, but I will take it up in the last panel discussion. I will share some of the important aspects. But please be rest assured, India is here to support the castor industry, and we will give you all the castor oil that is needed. So I thank you for sharing your views that castor, being a green product, will have an importance in this global economy to play, that we understand that, and that is why we are all working for improving the productivity on one hand, and we are also looking at other factors which can influence more and more demand for castor products. So I thank you for sharing your insights into the castor, demand per se, and we are here to supply you all the products. Thank you very much, Vivian. Thank you. I would now like to introduce you Mr. Henry Lammy. He is the purchasing and handling most of the castor oil business. He is a business manager, I would say, at Laureate and Hansen, France, and they are one of the leading importers of castor oil from India. So, Henry, over to you.
Thank you very much, Abai. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm pleased to participate to this webinar on castor oil, and I thank you, SEE, for this opportunity. And I'm pleased to present an outlook of European economy and impact on castor oil. Next slide, please. So in this summary, we will start with COVID-19 situation, then the European economy, the European chemical industry, European castor oil industry, and finally, uncertainties. Next slide, please. So after the COVID-19 outbreak 2 years ago, and despite the 5th wave of Omicron variant, the health situation is getting better in Europe right now. Several countries are gradually lifting restrictions. Next slide, please. About vaccine uptake, COVID-19 vaccine have enabled to control the pandemic in Europe. And studies have shown that the vaccines in the EU are highly protective against severe COVID-19, hospitalization, and death. Next slide, please. At this stage, we can see that 85% of adults in Europe have received the first dose, and almost 60% have received the booster dose. Next slide, please. The current Omicron variant spreads rapidly, but hospitalization and deaths are receding. Next slide, please. So we will continue with an European economy outlook and forecast. So 2021 was a year of recovery after the COVID crisis. From spring 2021, the EU economy has rebounded from the pandemic recession faster than expected, thanks to the improving epidemic situation and the relaxation of containment measures. EU private consumption grows to 3.3% in the second quarter of 2021. In summer, the EU economy regained its pre-pandemic output level and moved from recovery into expansion. But at the same time, new headwinds have been mounting. Next slide, please. So here we have the gross domestic products in 2020. So we can see that with the COVID situation, the GDP was in very low situation. We can also see the recovery in 2021 and forecasts for 2022 and 2023. Next slide, please. For 2022, we an expected growth amid headwinds. Following a strong recovery by 5.3% in 21, the EU economy is now forecast to grow by 4% in 22 and by 2.8% in 23. The economic expansion is set to regain pace in the second quarter of this year, despite headwinds have intensified. Indeed, supply bottlenecks, shortage of semiconductors, and surging energy prices keep weighing on production, and strong inflation weigh on households' purchasing power. Its peak is projected in the first quarter of 2022 and remain above 3% until the third quarter of the year. Next slide, please. Inflation. So the HICP for the next 3 years are still at a high level, and 2022 will see the highest level for inflation and should decrease by the end of the year and should be lower in 23. Next slide, please. Now we will talk about the European chemical industry. Next slide, please. Europe is the second largest chemicals producer in the world. Next slide. The chemical industry is a pillar of the European economy. The European Chemical Industry Council, CEFIC, expects EU chemical output to grow by 2.5% in 22, following growth of around 6% in 21. Demand growth in 21 was high in the consumer goods industries, as well as the European construction sector. The moderate 2.5% growth foreseen for the chemical industry in 22 is likely to be driven by further demand from the manufacturing sector. In particular, the European automotive industry is expected to recover as supply chain issues should be easing over the year. Yet, the long-term outlook remains uncertain. High consumer price inflation, surging energy and feedstock prices are a risk for growth in consumer and industrial demand. Next slide, please. So in this graph, we can see chemicals output at 10.5% above the previous year's level from Jan to June 21. Next slide, please. For the European industry, an ambition to become climate neutral by 2050 Many climate neutral and circular solutions rely on chemistry, from wind turbines to electric vehicles. Consequently, the European Commission has recognized the chemical industry for its indispensable role to help society achieve the new European Green Deal objectives. The EU aims to reduce its net greenhouse gas emission by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990. The Commission presented proposals to deliver these targets and make the European Green Deal a reality. Bio-based products will enable to scale up the bioeconomy. Next slide, please. In this graph, we can see that greenhouse gas emissions fall nearly 54% since 1990. Next slide, please. Now we have a look on European castor oil industry. Bio-based product, castor oil advantages. Replacing oil-based high-performance plastic with a bio-based and sustainable is one of the major goals of the chemical industry. Castor oil is a renewable raw material, a non-edible plant that do not compete with food production, is a suitable replacement for oil-based polymers without compromising in material performance, and offers a wide range of applications. Next slide, please. Here we can see the different applications of castor oil and derivatives. Next slide, please. Let's focus on automotive sector in Europe. In January, EU passenger car registration continued to fall, with the ongoing semiconductor shortage still affecting car sales across the region. Nevertheless, with chip supplies expected to stabilize in 2022, the European Automobile Manufacturers Association now forecasts that car registration in the EU will return to growth this year, rising by 7.9% to reach 10.5 million units. The construction sector in Europe. The European construction sector is expected to grow by 2.5% in 2022. Currently, building volumes are being boosted by new investment from the EU Recovery Fund, whereas ongoing housing shortage and high house prices provide structural demand for new residential construction. Next slide, please. Here we have the graph showing the EU import of castor oil. The import of castor oil in Europe are at almost 1,500,000 tons in 2021. It represents an increase of 25% compared to 2020 and shows the good demand for castor oil. In view of above slides and as per first export figures, we expect the demand for castor oil to scale up in 2022. Here we can see the price evolution since 2010. The castor market prices have been rising continuously since the fourth quarter of 2020, following the global economic recovery. Since the beginning of 2022, prices are on the rise and are on ice. Next slide, please. Uncertainties. On the other hand, it remains some uncertainties in 2022, which might weigh on the European economy, such as geopolitical tension between Russia and Ukraine. We can be pretty confident that this will put upward pressure on oil markets, and we'll be watching gas prices pretty nervously as we wait to see what sanctions are introduced. How will the logistics and freight rates to be affected due to war risk? How will inflation develop, and how raw materials and especially veg oils price will develop? Next slide, please. Here we can see the graph of Brent crude price, which exceed yesterday after the Russian attacks on Ukraine exceeded $100. Next slide, please. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a nice day.
Thank you, Henry. Very nice presentation on the EU. And I'm happy to note that the consumption in EU for castor oil would remain stable or would keep growing because of the global demand especially on the green chemistry side. So I'm happy to note that. And we assure you again from India that we will continue to supply you with as much castor oil as one would need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Milke.
The global outlook for castor seed and oil. We cannot talk about this without considering the global situation of vegetable oils in particular, as well as commodity markets in general. The invasion of Russia in Ukraine threatens to have severe effects on commodity markets, particularly on crude mineral oil, on gas, on wheat, on corn, on sunflower oil, sunflower meal, and other products. We have seen some of that during the past 2 days. What are the repercussions on edible oils in coming months, on castor oil, castor seed in coming months? We have to consider the situation in palm oil. Palm oil prices at new record highs this week. Where is the end? Prices are at unprecedented territory. We have seen unusual developments in oilseeds worldwide over the past 1 year, 1.5 years. Severe climatic problems all over the world. 1/3 of the Canadian canola crop was lost due to drought last year. Over the past 2 months, drought in South America damaged the soybean crop by at least 27 million tons, probably 30 million tons. Lower soybean supplies, lower crushings of soybeans have reduced and will reduce production and export supplies of soybean oil. Sunflower oil. What can we expect in form of sunflower oil exports over the past couple of months? We at Oil World, International Statistical Agricultural Information, we have observed this market now since 1958, 65 years ago. We are doing global market research with particular focus on oilseeds, vegetable and animal oils and fats, oil meals, and increasingly also on grains and biodiesel. We are providing forecasts of supply, demand, and prices to our readers in more than 100 countries. We are independent. We are not involved in trading. We don't have any positions. So we are unbiased. And today I can be only very brief, but I invite everybody of you to contact me if he requires additional information. Castor. Prices of castor oil have strengthened significantly since we met last year, and this was not unexpected. Castor seed production was moving into a deficit, and this supply problems in castor have supported castor oil prices. But of course, castor oil also got spillover support from other vegetable oils. So we see rallying prices here in Rotterdam. Castor oil prices have appreciated to $2,200 US, weakened slightly We had some weather problems and some delays in India, some delays also in shipments, which supported castor prices last month. Kandla currently at $1,900 US. Have we seen the peaks in prices? Probably yes, but probably there is some additional upward potential depending what the actual Indian production of castor seed is, and depending on the further development of world imports from China and other countries. And lastly, of course, depending on spillover effects of other vegetable oils. World production of castor seed is in deficit. For India, we currently see the crop somewhere between 1.7 to 1.8 million tons. Plantings were reduced. Luckily, Indian farmers made major progress in raising yields. At the moment, we work with a crop estimate of 1.75 million tons. This is less than required and will keep Indian supplies of castor relatively small. In the rest of the world, depressed production compared to 10 and 20 years ago. Indian dominance on the world market has further increased, as you know. Brazilian production on a declining trend, 27,000 tons produced in Brazil this season. At the moment, expectations are for some moderate increase, but this remains to be seen and also depends on weather conditions in the next few weeks. Very little improvement likely in Brazil, Africa, Thailand, China, relatively low production. So worldwide, castor seed is in relatively a tight supply. As far as castor oil is concerned, consumers already built stocks in China, in Europe, in the US, and many other countries in the course of 2021. World stocks of castor high at around 190,000 tons at the beginning of this season. Imports could be reduced, moderating the impact of the smaller Indian export supplies for the current season. October-September 2021-22, we expect world imports to decline to 660,000 tons. Chinese imports probably down 60,000 tons, 300,000 tons, which is possible, which is possible without reducing consumption in China by reducing the large stocks of castor oil. Same in Europe. For Europe, we see only a slight decline in castor consumption in the current season, but imports will probably drop to 180 to 185,000 tons. Despite the lower production in India, despite the lower production of castor worldwide, it is still possible to slightly raise world consumption. Now we have to look at the vegetable oil market worldwide. Prices skyrocketed over the past 2 years. We already faced high prices last year. When we met last year in February, prices even increased further, particularly over the past 2 months. This week, soya oil prices in Argentina rallied to 1,630 as of February 23. They continued to appreciate yesterday, up sharply from 1 year and 2 years earlier. Sun oil prices have been about or close to the year ago level. Prices have become more competitive. Sun oil prices become more competitive at a discount to soya oil and palm oil, but this could change depending on the developments of production and export supplies from the Black Sea. Palm oil, record high Indonesian palm oil prices at 1,660 on February 23, increased sharply again yesterday with very high volatility, a lot of uncertainty in the market. Palm oil at the moment more than double, far more than double the 5-year average, and up steeply by around $600 from a year ago. This, of course, is affecting consumers in many importing countries, particularly in the developing world. Consumers are struggling hard to cover their requirements at these high prices. Sunflower oil, the war in Ukraine has created a lot of uncertainty regarding crushings and exports of sunflower oil. Some crushing plants have reportedly been closed yesterday. A week ago, in our monthly global analysis of February 18, we had estimated an increase in world exports of sunflower oil by 2.4 million tons in the current season. All of this increase was anticipated to occur in February, September, following a sluggish start of crushings and exports in October, January. Now there is a big question mark. Will Ukraine actually be able to export 6.7 million tons in the current season? I very much doubt this. And this has created a lot of risks on the side of consumers who have low coverage, waiting for prices to drop, and now have to cover. Finding substitutes for Black Sea sun oil is not easy. Yesterday we have seen a pickup in purchases from Argentine sun oil, but Argentine export supplies are limited. Probably we are likely to see somewhat higher crushings and somewhat higher exports from Argentina than we estimated last week. But this cannot solve the situation. Big uncertainty how much sun oil will be available on the global market in coming months. Palm oil. Palm oil has been very tight over the past couple of weeks. The introduction of export controls in Indonesia has significantly reduced Indonesian exports. Some of this demand has been shifted from Indonesia to Malaysia, but Malaysia can offset Indonesian export losses, export declines, only to a limited extent. Now we face a situation that in February, Malaysian exports of palm oil are up sharply at the expense of stocks. Malaysian palm oil stocks will be very small at the end of this month. So vegetable oil, the vegetable oil market is on fire. And this is also spilling over into castor to some extent. Worldwide stocks are reduced sharply. Record high prices of soya oil and palm oil implies a major burden for edible oil consumers. In this situation, the current high consumption of vegetable oils for biodiesel is not sustainable. It is high time that biodiesel policies are adjusted to the realities of the market, and this means temporary reductions of the consumption mandates in the key consuming countries, in Indonesia, in Europe, in the US, in South America. Some of that has already taken place in Brazil and Argentina, but considerably more has to come. In my opinion, there is a high likelihood that we will see some announcements and a decline and a reduction of biodiesel usage mandates in certain countries sometime soon. At least there is a high probability, in my opinion. And if that happens, it would have a major bearish impact immediately when the announcement is made on vegetable oil prices. In Indonesia, the current tightness, or on the world market, the current tightness in palm oil is temporary. While Indonesian exports are being reduced at the moment, partly due to administrative problems of giving the authorization for exports, Indonesian stocks are rising. And sooner or later, the Indonesian government is likely to change the rules and allow palm oil to again move out of the country in greater volume. The recovery of palm oil stocks in Indonesia is taking place, and we expect a downward pressure in prices once Indonesian exports become bigger. There is a very high uncertainty in the market at the moment, a lot of risks, but it appears to me that prices of edible oils have been pushed to a level which are not sustainable. Demand is suffering. World demand for edible vegetable oils are suffering at the moment, and I would not be surprised to see high volatility also to the downside in the medium term. With this, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening, and I would be welcome, you would be welcome to contact me for any further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Milky. I'm happy that you have joined this meeting as well. So it was always nice to see you. It has always been nice to see you, and I think the crowd here is definitely going to contact, because we are in a very volatile world right now, and edible oil being a very important ingredient to normal living standards, I think people are going to touch base you. So please assist them in always. Thank you again.
Thank
and
you
I think since you're not joining the panel discussions, there could be many other questions that could have come, but due to paucity of time, I would not take much of this time when I can see you on the screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Is Mr. Balda ready for a presentation? So please
Hello,
go ahead
everyone.
with your presentation. Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone from different parts of the world. Sorry for the technology disruption. Thanks C team for giving me the opportunity to express my views on Castor Dynamics with reference to India. I'll start my presentation by giving a brief. Next slide, please. So, with the strong, stable and decisive government in India and their various reform initiatives, the overall Indian economy numbers looks good. The tax collections are at record high levels. We grow by 8 to 9% during 2022. Stock market is booming. Exchange rate hovering around 75 level. CPI inflation seen higher at 6% during January 2022. And if inflation continues increasing, then the Apex Bank may be forced to increase the interest rate, which may decrease the liquidity in the market. Fiscal deficit seen at 6.9% of GDP, which is almost on track with the target. COVID situation improving very fast as vaccination increasing and is helping resume normalcy. Next slide, please. So coming to Castor, I'll start with Castor sowing. So sowing in 2022 started at par with previous year till August, as there were normal rains in end June and July. August was a dry month. There were very little rain in August, which resulted in a lag in sowing. Overall sowing was lower by almost 100,000 hectares by end of August as compared to similar period of the previous year. There were very good rains in September, which resulted in increasing sowing numbers during second half September and first half October. And the final number closed at almost similar to what it was during 2020. This was also helped by the improved prices of castor seed lately during August and September. The metrics on the right-hand side is showing because of late and good monsoon and the lower crop got converted into an average crop. Current year, I think, is an average crop, which is shown as orange block. Next slide, please. Castor sowing area. If we see past trend, castor sowing area jumped sharply during 2011. That was because of 2010 was a shortage year and the price jumped up sharply, almost got doubled. And that resulted in a sharp increase in castor area during 2011. Since 2011 to 2016, there is a steady drop in area because the prices during 2011 was at peak and thereafter it was decreasing year on year till 2016. Since 2016 to 2021, the castor sowing area has remained almost at similar level, except 2019, which was a result of a sudden spike in prices during post-harvest period during March to June. Next slide, please. So this is castor crop projection. So if we see, there was a jump in area during 2019, which has resulted in a higher crop of almost 2 million metric ton during 2020. The area during 2020 remained lower, around 800,000 hectares, with a crop size of 1.75 million metric ton. The area during 2021, as declared by government, has remained same as 2020. The overall progression of crop has remained good due to good weather during growth stage, and also due to the 2 spells of rains which helped the growth of castor lately. Assuming a similar yield like last year, the crop number can be estimated at around 1.76 million metric ton, almost similar to last year. I would like to bring to your notice that Government of India has recently declared the second advance estimate on 16th of February. The crop size for 2021-22, what they declared is 1.51 million metric ton as against 1.65 for the previous year, a decrease of 8.5%. Next slide. Moving on to exports. The overall export during 2021 was 690,000 metric ton as against 658,000 metric ton, an increase of 4.8%. There was an increase of almost 21% during 2020. Europe has shown an increase of 5.7% year on year. China has shown a sharp jump of 35% during 2020, which got restricted to a mere increase of 3.6% during 2021. Export to USA increased 11% during 2021. Japan and Thailand, Japan almost stable at 18,000 and Thailand around 20,000 a year. Next slide, please. Castor oil exports. This slide depicts month-wise export pattern in last 3 years. On the left-hand side, that is export to China. If we see gray line, that is showing 2021 numbers. China imported aggressively during first half 2021. That was more than 200,000 ton during first half, showing a sharp increase in number by almost 45% as compared to the first half of 2020. Our export to China declined during second half, and that dropped by almost 28% during second half as compared to the second half during 2020. So overall increase by China was nearly 3.6%. This was mainly on account of Winter Olympics and high price level and the New Year and the reasons explained by Vivian earlier. All other destinations, including Europe, USA, showed an increase of 10% during first half and an increase of 1.75% during second half 2021. Next slide, please. Now, Castor balance sheet with a crop size of 1.75 in 2020 and a carry in of almost 400,000 ton. The carry out number in 2021 was 200,000 metric ton as against opening stock of 400. If we assume a similar crop this year, which will be declared in some time by AgriWatch, if we assume the same number, the overall S&D situation during 2022 appears to be tight, provided the exports continues to grow at a similar pace of 5 to 7%, as we have seen during last 10 to 12 years. We need to factor in the crushing and export requirement during Q1 2023, which may be needed to be catered from the current crop. And hence it makes the situation more tight. Next slide, please. Castor outlook. If you see the chart, castor seed price ex market yard, the castor seed prices are at peak at historic high level of around 1,400 rupees per 20 kg. However, castor oil price also in last few years is at peak, but if currently at 1850 FOB level, but history high peak was during 2011, which was almost at $2,500 to $2,700 per ton. This is mainly because the exchange USD INR exchange rate during 2011 was 45, which is currently at 75. Price of competing commodities, including veg oils, crude oils, are also at peak. CSM price is also at a high level. It's around 12,000 rupees a ton, which used to be around 5,000 rupees a ton. That is castor meal price. So that is also got doubled. Next slide. So the last slide is overall summary about current castor market. In nutshell, overall supply during 2022 may be tighter as compared to 2021, making overall tight availability. Lower carry-in during 2022 has resulted in an overall tight availability during Q1 2021, which has resulted in a price spike recently. Price of competing crops are on higher side. These crops are also backed by MSP, which is not the castor, being a non-food crop, and there is no government interventions in this. Crude price, which also affects the castor consumptions, so that is also soaring at very high level. Future contract of other commodities like soybean and mustard are banned recently, though, so the speculators, investors may find castor as a safe bet, as there is no government intervention, being a non-food item. Inventory at each level, including farmers, traders, processors, exchange in demat form, exporters, importers, consumers, are low. This is mainly because the current price levels are on higher side, and people are expecting the new crop to arrive. So they expect once the new crop arrives, the prices may decline. So each participants have tried to lower the inventory level. Farmers may sell castor seed faster this year, as we have seen this year during first quarter also. The arrival of new castor seed is at much higher as compared to the new castor seed arrival during first quarter of 2022. Though the overall availability of castor seed arrival is same number, but since last year the opening stock was higher, so that is why there was no tight situation which is seen this year. Most participants may feel it risky affair to increase the inventory level now, so they will wait for the prices to lower during the peak arrival, and once the daily arrival increases the daily crushing or export requirement, there is a chance of marginal drop in prices, because people will not buy and make long position or resume the normal inventory level at current prices. However, we may not expect the prices to go much lower like what it was in history. The prices may correct slightly, but we may not see that too much. Other factors, because these were all S&D factors, other factors like COVID situation, economic performance, exchange rate, supply chain, and geopolitical factors, including the latest one, Russia-Ukraine conflict. So this will play a very critical role in overall price behavior, and we have to closely monitor these situations. So that was from my side. Thank you. Thank you very much. And nice weekend.
Thank you, Sailesh bhai. Very crystal clear for everyone to understand where we stand as India is there as far as castor is concerned. Very short of time, I thank you and thank all the panelists, all the presenters today for giving an excellent presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Arshad.
Thank you, Mr. Udeshi. Thank you all the speakers for enlightening us and the industry with your knowledge and views across the globe. After this data-packed session at the global level, we now move to grassroots level. SEA has put in dedicated efforts towards improving the agricultural productivity and the yield output. SEA has been constantly engaging with our farmer friends and encouraging them to adopt better agronomic practices and to innovate. To recognize the efforts of our farmer friends, SEA would like to present before you Shri Vithaldas G. Udeshi Castor Innovation Awards 2022. Let us know more about these awards.
Shri Vithaldas Udeshi, who is also hailed as a father of modern castor oil production in India, pioneered the castor crushing industry in 1952. He was a visionary who made India the top castor oil supplier to the world, with support from the government of Gujarat. To honor his rich legacy, the Solvent Extractors Association of India, which is dedicated to the promotion and growth of the industry, together with Jayant Agro Organics Limited, has initiated the Shri Vithaldas Udeshi Castor Innovation Award. This award has been established to recognize contributions made by various relevant stakeholders to the castor oil industry, such as farming, research, agronomy, production, and more. The man who has inspired a revolution in India continues to inspire and recognize the generations to come. Shri Vithaldas Udeshi Castor Innovation Award.
While many of our farmer friends have done phenomenally well in increasing their productivity, we would like to present awards to the top performers. We hereby present the awards for top performers. The first prize goes to Ramjibhai Amubhai Patel for achieving productivity of 8,750 kg per hectare from Katra village in Patan district in Gujarat. For his hard work and efforts, SEA and the Vithaldas G. Udeshi Castor Innovation Awards hand over them a cash reward of INR 25,000 rupees. Congratulations, Ramjibhai. The second prize goes to Kantibhai Magabhai Patel for achieving an output productivity of 6,600 kg per hectare. He hails from Ratanpur in the Sabarkantha district in the Gujarat state and is rewarded with rupees 15,000. The third prize goes to Dineshbhai Hirabhai Vora for achieving productivity of close to 6,000 kg per hectare. He hails from Madana in the Banaskantha district in Gujarat state. And he's been rewarded with rupees 10,000 for his hard work. The fourth prize goes to Srimati Geetaben Premji Gilani and for achieving a productivity of 3,400 kg per hectare from Dasa village in Bhavnagar district, Gujarat. And she has been rewarded a cash prize of rupees 10,000. This award is special because it encourages the contribution of women farmers and entrepreneurs in the industry. So a heartiest congratulations to all the four winners. And we'd like to reiterate that SEA recognizes the outstanding efforts of these farmers in achieving better castor seed productivity. And we further appeal all our farmer friends to adopt better agronomic practices, and SEA assures you to provide constant support to farmers, friends to achieve better productivity. Thank you so much. The dedicated team of industry stalwarts along with SEA has been instrumental in providing the farmers with their support and guidance. SEA team headed by Mr. Haresh Vyas, who is the project in charge, for SEA Castor Sustainability Effort, which is the Model Castor Farm Project, and Mr. Bhavin Chitrala, the project in charge for the Water Conservation Project, along with Dr. B.V. Mehta, Executive Director of SEA. This team is working jointly with farmers in adopting better agronomic practices and thereby improving the productivity and yield output. To highlight the team, I'd like to invite Mr. Haresh Vyas and Mr. Bhavin Chitrala to provide an update on both these projects. Allow me to have Mr. Vyas, can you please unmute?
Yeah.
Allow me to also add Mr. Chatrala. So
Hello.
we have Bhavin Chatrala and Mr. Haresh Vyas, who will update us on both the projects. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
So good day to everyone who is attending from all parts of this world. And I would appreciate, Hansel will soon load the presentation. Okay.
All yours, Mr. Vyas.
Thank you. Go to the second slide. So this is SEA's Castor Sustainability Effort, and we'll just highlight, a couple of points and run it fast because I've been told that I need to save some time for the main sessions to come up. So move on to the next slide, please. Okay, the main objective of this whole project is, to bring in more returns, more rewards for the farmer and the farming community. And the whole objective is to be, achieved by way of, intervention, positive intervention from the part of sea and its team. Maybe we can go to the next slide, please. And so to achieve this, the key components is like good agronomic practices, dissemination of correct information to the farmers, educating farmers through farmers, reducing the use of chemicals and fertilizers, reducing the wastage of water, and adapting and acknowledging and appreciating the government schemes so that the farmers can be benefited. And lastly, we need to understand that we should be discouraging child labor at all levels of the Farming Act. Next slide, please. So with those objectives and the things that we do, what do we really achieve? So there are three major impacts that we achieve through this whole exercise of sustainability, and those are like the social objective, where the socially you are supporting farm workers, you are supporting women, you are involving participation of small scale farmers into the whole project, and elevate the standard of living. We enter, see that we completely abolish the use of child labor in the farming. The second is economic. As you are aware, most of the farmers, into the castor activity are basically based on small farmers, and they really need good support so that their economic upliftment is done through the projects that we run. And how do we do that? It is by better management of waste management and other practices that help them reduce the cost, save water saving. And so that is how that economic saving is achieved, and thereby with the improvement of the yield that happens due to the good agronomic practices we preach, there's upliftment of the farmer. And the last impact is the environmental impact. So what we are doing is basically trying to optimize the use of sun, soil, water, and air. And at the same time, there is a reduction in terms of consumption of water, reduction in terms of consumption of chemicals. So environmentally, this is helping to improve the environment and improve the carbon footprint. Next, please. So, as you are all aware, with the help of all the participants from the industry who have been supporting, we have been running this project since last 6 years, and we have benefited more than, or rather trained more than 30,000 farmers, and from a basic level of 35 farms, now we have grown up to 500 farms, and as you are aware, this has immensely benefited the yield output, we will be able to demonstrate that in the next slide, that how it is helping and how we are, reducing the gap between a normal farmer and a model farm through this program. Next slide, please. So you can see, this year's photographs of the various stages of different farms. Maybe next slide, please. So there you can see already, a lot of harvested crop in front of you and farmer training camp photographs. Next slide, please. So this is what has been happening at the sustainable Castor model farms. So this year we did around close to 408 farms in an area of 350 hectares. Unfortunately, due to excessive rain in some places and due to absolute no rain in some places, 98 farmers had to drop out from this scheme, and we had 7 coordinators plus a couple of people like me, Bhavin, and Dr. Mehta, assisting the whole project. Next slide, please. The whole thing over here is, like you can see this year's model farm yields have gone up to 4456 as against, a non-model farm or a normal farm of 2954. So that is, we are showing a increase of 50% in terms of, comparison as against a normal farm. The whole objective of this sustainable program is to reduce this gap between a model farm and the non-model farm, and that is the effort that we are putting in. So we can see, over the years, you can observe that, that gap is, sort of coming closer and closer. But I personally believe a lot still needs to be done to, sort of bring the levels as close as possible. Next slide, please. And this is what is happening. Improved standard of living for the farmers. There are a couple of other things like we have done intercropping programs. The average yields of the farmers are going up, and this has been achieved by good farm practices. As already repeating, good farm practices and intercropping are the key words that go into the whole thing that we are carrying out. Next slide, please. Women empowerment, we have been encouraging women to participate in the model farms. We have been, educating them to not involve child labor. We have been educating them, in terms of bringing in education at girls level. And also we have designed special equipments which a woman can utilize at the farm level. Next slide, please. And here you can see, like how we build up, bring in different farmers from different areas, and train them, show the model farms, and how they can themselves, after learning from us, can propagate the same thing. And we see a lot of good results of this happening, and that is why we see overall the productivity or average yield in the region of Gujarat and Rajasthan going up, step by step. At the same time, we are issuing sustainability farm practices certificate to the participating farmers, and also from this year we are going to issue, sustainability supporters certificate to the people who support this act. And at the same time, we have taken up, tracing the carbon footprint from this year onwards. Next slide, please. Another major challenge in the sustainability of this farming is the water, particularly the the North Gujarat part or the South Rajasthan part is deficient in terms of the water table. And we have been running this water harvesting project since last 3 years, where Bhavin Chatrala plays, a major role. Guide him, but he plays a very active role. And we have so far, during the last 3 years, done more than 300 water harvesting projects in a clustered form. Next slide, please. These are the different methods of recharging. We do recharging of bore wells, and recharging the pits where bore well and wells are not present. Next slide, please. Next slide. We are particularly thankful to all the stakeholders who have been, supporting this program. We once again, appreciate their efforts, and we have to appeal to them that they keep on, their support coming to us, and we'll also appeal to some major and minor players also to come forward and support this act, because as I told you earlier, that a lot needs to be done in this area. And the need is not of farmers, but I personally believe the need is of the industry and the other actors in this whole game, that who needs this supply. Next slide, please. So next year we are planning 600 model plant. 600 castor model farms. We will cover around more than 300 hectares. The outgoing will be in the vicinity of $150,000. And as I have already appealed, we want more and more stakeholders to participate in contributing towards this goal. Next slide, please. Thank you so much for giving me time, and hopefully everybody comes forward and support us. Thank you so much.
Mr. Vyas, I'll be playing the video that we've.
Sure, we'd love to see that.
The Solvent Extractors Association of India, Castor Seed Yield Improvement and Rainwater Harvesting Campaign. SEA of India is on a path-breaking journey of fructifying our Prime Minister's mission of doubling the farmer's income with the project Castor Seed Yield Improvement Program. SEA is collaborating with farmers, agri-experts, quality seed manufacture industry and others to achieve the objective of raising the productivity and production of castor seed through establishing model farms and showcasing them to the farmers for the best agro practices. The SEA of India's team selects the area, cluster of farms in different districts. The process starts with soil testing to determine the right inputs, then goes on to soil preparation, imparting modern techniques, providing farmers with quality seeds, fertilizers and other inputs. SEA's team has been successful in raising the productivity from an all India average of 1600 kilograms per hectare to as high as 4500 kilograms per hectare, which is 3 times higher compared to the average. Meaning, last year India harvested 20 lakhs tons of castor seed crop, a very big achievement in itself. After developing such model farms in different areas, SEA of India invites non-participating farmers in these model farms and gives them proper information about sustainable farming practices of castor and its best results. Along with this, since castor is a long duration crop, farmers are encouraged to practice intercropping to increase their income. Every year at the SEA of India's annual Global Castor Conference, 4 progressive farmers, including a woman farmer, are acknowledged and awarded with the Shri Vithalbhai Ji Udeshi Castor Innovation Award for obtaining the best yield results. While working successfully on the yield improvement programs, the team ran into a stumbling block, which was depletion of groundwater. Farmers were drawing water from a depth of 600 to 1000 feet and water level was fast depleting. SEA then decided to take up project rainwater harvesting and replenishing groundwater, along with castor seed yield improvement project. Large amount of excess rainwater just flows away from the farms to the natural passage and is wasted. The idea is to tap this water in such a way that it diverts to the ground to recharge the depleting groundwater level. With the help of water conservation expert, SEA adopted 3 methods for rainwater harvesting and replenishing groundwater: recharging the wells, bore wells, and open trenches in the farms. For recharging the well or a bore well, filtration system is built near the well or bore well in order to ensure that filtered water flows to the underground. The filtration system comprises of 4-stage different level pits or chambers. filled with stones and gravels to remove the impurities from the rainwater to ensure that only filtered water is recharged in the open well or bore well. Under the scheme, SEA pays 50% of the expenses and 50% is paid by the farmer. That is private partnership model. And farmers are happily joining the project rainwater harvesting. In such cases where farmers do not have their well or bore well on the natural waterway, SEA designed open pits in their farms so the rainwater that deposits in the pits naturally percolates into ground and replenishes underground water level. As the result of rainwater harvesting project, farmers have started sowing one extra season crop and raising farm produce. The farmers who could not sow crop during summer due to shortage of water have joined this campaign and have started farming the summer crops. How much this campaign of SEA of India has benefited the farmers? This way, the SEA of India leads Indian farmers towards the way of prosperity and farmers' welfare. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vyas and Mr. Chatrala for sharing these insights. Now, I would like to, so just for the information of the public, I'm sure some of these initiatives that SEA has been conducting, will be emulated in other geographies across the globe. Similar such models for different crops like rape mustard are also underway in Rajasthan under joint efforts by SEA and Solidaridad. And while the team is doing this wonderful work of improving the productivity and helping the farmers, C has also been so progressive in their thought process that they have been conducting an independent audit of performance of their model farms or model projects. To hear what an independent third-party report says, I would like to Mr. Abhishek Kumar as a consultant from Mart Global Management Solutions LLP, and he would be happy to express his views on the progress that he's seen in the project so far. Over to you.
Thank you,
Mr. Kumar.
So it was basically part of annual evaluation study for the model castor farm. Next, please. So objective was very clear. It was regarding the overall assessment of the model castor farm, development of some good case study, and the recommendation and suggestion for the feasibility. So they are doing this activity in the 2 states and the 6 districts. And I have selected between 40 model farmers and 20 control farmers. So model farmers are those farmers where the support from the sea has been provided, and the control farmers were those traditional farmers that were doing the castor farming through the conventional method. Next, please. So as far as approach is concerned, I have very sampled a few farmers, and it was entirely very objective study. And I have designed some survey and questionnaire to understand the technical details, support from the sea, socio-economic condition, and existing challenges. And the model versus the control farmers were the key parameters where I try to quantify the differences between the productivity and between both the type of farms in terms of the productivity, income, resource intensiveness. Next, please. So there were the 5 parameters on which the project was evaluated, and the project design was the first parameter. I found that everything of a typical technical project that required, that is the capacity building, provision of expert advice, all things were there, and there was minimum financial outlay, means resource. The project is not much resource intensive. It is very much feasible. Next, please. Yeah, in terms of relevance, much relevance as there is a great increase in productivity that I will elaborate in later on slides. There is a good increase in income for welfare, and we all know that the government of India is targeting to double the farmers' income by 2022 and also to achieve $6 billion of export as far as Ashok Dubai Committee has said, recommended. For industry also, the better productivity will correspond to the achieving the economy of scale. So next please. In terms of the effectiveness, I found that the project has led to the 50% overall increase in productivity. That is very, very huge. And as Atul sir has said that it is a game changer, so definitely the program is a game changer. And we can see that the project has done very well in the area, especially in the Kutch and Rajasthan, where 100% productivity has been noticed. So farmers' income also correspond to the productivity, where it has been increased by 50%. And intercropping, which is being introduced in Rajkot, it also has been increased with some good increase in farmers' income. Next, please. So these two factors basically distinguish between the model farms and the control farms. The left side model farms that is proper spacing is there, resource efficient and large branches that do the more pods in the model farms. Where we can see the control farms in the right side, which has the very high density, it is very resource intensive. There is a lot of nutrient basis, low productivity is there in the control farms. Next, please. So project efficiency, we already have mentioned about the good. We have noticed about the farmers' perception also, the model farmers. So 85% of the farmers were either satisfied or very much satisfied. That's a very good thing. And 100% of the farmers were receiving the promised support that the C staff came in. That is the hand-holding support, fertilizers, pesticides, and all. That's the figure. Next, please. So in terms of the impact and sustainability, I also have some brief questionnaire designed for control farmers. I found that the good number of them were very much they were aware about the program and intervention, and they acknowledged about the comparative advantage on which the model farmers are standing in compared to them. And model farmers also, the 90% of the model farmers has claimed to take up this kind of farming for the next season. That shows that the sustainability is definitely going to achieve this. Next, please. So in terms of the recommendation, basically there are few recommendations from our side. Since the project is going on the 6th year, so they found evidence, and she can look for the scaling of this activity, where we have recommended that the model farmers may be converted to master farmers, where some incentives can be given. They need to have some better IC materials in terms of the flip chart, training modules, some good documentaries. An agency can be hired for that purpose. So regarding water use efficiency, there is need to have, because most of the farmers are using flooding method that lead to resource wastage. As Vijay sir has already mentioned, that the water use efficiency is only 30% in India. So we together had to work upon this. And in terms of the climate change, there was some evidence of crop-borne fungal attack, frost damage. So see, for forerunner of this castor farming, so the proactively share the data with the research and development issues like ICAR and all. There is also requirement to converge on the key schemes of the government like soil health card, crop insurance, institutional trade. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar, for your independent views. This truly affirms the efforts of the C team. Moving on to the next speaker, I would like to invite Mr. Santosh Jawar, Vice President Consulting at Indian Agribusiness Systems Limited, to make a presentation on the Indian Castor Crop Survey 2021-22.
Yeah, on behalf of AgriWatch team, I thank you, Castor Council and SCA for giving us the opportunity on the successive 5th year to did the findings of castor crop in various states of India and present the neutral view on the castor crop estimates for 21-22. Similar to last year, the objectives of the crop survey for 21-22 are to estimate the area under castor cultivation through remote data analysis and farmer survey, and to understand the reasons for change in acreage this year as compared to previous year, and to find out the reasons for change in yield this year versus last year, and accordingly estimate the expected yield and the final production. Our methodology, like we use the triangulation method. We do primary surveys, we do remote data analysis, also the secondary data analysis for arriving at the castor crop numbers for different states. For this primary survey, we have planned around 4,000 farmer surveys, and so far we have done 2 rounds of field surveys and covered almost 2,650 farmers so far. And from Gujarat, we have covered around 1,850 farmers, from Rajasthan 600 farmers, and AP and Telangana around 200 farmers. Along with that, we have also analyzed the satellite imagery of Sentinel-2 from the period of October 2021 to January 2022 to understand the crop sowing acreages and to validate the numbers which is being given by the state government. So these are total farmer survey that we have planned for this survey. And in Gujarat, we are covering 12 districts, which covers almost 90 to 95% of the total acreage in the state. In Rajasthan, we cover 4 districts, and in AP Telangana, we cover 4 districts. Next, please. So the other 4 states of AP Telangana, which cover. Next, please. For AP and Telangana, as per the state government acreage estimates, this year state is estimating around 23,000 hectare of castor planting versus 29,000 hectare of castor planting last year. As per our farmer surveys, our findings is around 39,000 hectare of castor planting in AP and Telangana together, and through remote data analysis, these numbers are around 27,000 hectare. Based on the farmers' feedback and field visits, the yield estimates for AP and Telangana for current year is estimated to be around 1,500 kg per hectare, and accordingly, the production estimated is to be 35,000 tons. The crops, the crops conditions this year were average due to pest and fungus attack. Last year, our estimate was 56,000. And this year we are estimating around 35,000 tons of production in AP and Telangana together. Rajasthan, the 4 districts are Barmer, Jodhpur, Jalore, and Siroi. These are the rainfall conditions in this monsoon year. Whereas Barmer and Jodhpur were the normal rainfall this year, whereas Jalore and Siroi has a deficient rainfall. In Rajasthan, as per state government, the acreage is around 1,20,000 hectare, whereas which is around 5% lower than previous year, whereas our farmers survey estimates is close to around 1,28,000 hectare, and our remote data analysis says about 1,37,000 hectare of a castor planting in the Rajasthan. And castor crop conditions are average to good in the Rajasthan, which we found during our field surveys. And the yield estimates, so yield estimates are a little bit lower than previous year because of less rainfall in some. And this year we are expecting around 1,690 kg per hectare against last year's estimate of 1,780 kg per hectare. With this estimate of state government acreage and our yield estimates, we are estimating a production of around 2 lakh tons of castor seed this year versus last year's estimate of 2,00,000 tons of castor seed. This is mainly because of little bit lower acreage and lesser yield expectations this year. The Gujarat, the largest producing states, we normally cover 12 districts. The slide shows about the rainfall pattern which in the 2021 monsoon season, except Kutch, Surendranagar and Vadodara, all the castor growing districts having the deficient rainfall. As per our field survey, we are expecting acreage of around 6,88,000 hectares of castor planting this year, whereas state government's estimates are around 6,52,000 hectares, which is roughly like relatively 2% higher than the previous year. And as per, in fact, our farmer survey also says that castor's acreage were higher this year, but only fact that the planting was delayed this year due to the late arrival of monsoon. Our remote data analysis also says around 6,53,000 hectares of castor planting this year. So the castor planting will be in the range of 6,50,000 to 6,90,000 hectares in the Gujarat state. Coming to the yield estimates and the as per the crop conditions, the delayed monsoons were the result for late planting, but the crop conditions were average to good in most of the districts, and the soil moisture was like kind of adequate because of the late rains in November month, which increased the prospects for the higher yield. But subsequently, the cloudy weather and foggy weather during the end of December reduced the yield prospects further. Due to that reason, we are expecting a lower yield this year as compared to the previous year. Not much lower, but relatively less as compared to the previous year. So the state average yield, which is coming as per our estimates to be 2,342 kg per hectare versus last year's estimate of 2,371 kg per hectare. With this yield and area of state government, we are estimating a production of 15.47 lakh ton of castor this year in Gujarat state against last year's estimate of 4 lakh ton. This is the all India castor seed production estimates. In total in India, we are expecting a production of 17.95 lakh ton hectare, close to 18 lakh ton, which is roughly 1.8 million ton versus last year's estimate of 17.89 lakh ton, and with an average yield of 2022 kg per hectare versus last year's yield of 2,166 kg per hectare. So these numbers are based on till 2 rounds of field surveys and remote data analysis. We will be having one more round of field survey during March, April to validate the yield and to arrive at the final production numbers, because it has already started, and upcoming weather and the temperature and the market prices will impact the final yield and the production numbers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jawar, for this presentation. While we are talking about the output, castor output and productivity, during the crop survey, samples of castor seeds were collected and analyzed for oil and moisture contents. We have the data for district-wise average result of oil and moisture contents. We sincerely thank Geochem Laboratories Private Limited for this analysis. Allow me to just quickly take you through the study of the samples. We will be uploading the video recording of this webinar on our website as well as other social media platforms. So industry friends, If you wish to have this data, you may, by the next early week, you may also look up for this particular webinar and have the data. Now, moving on to the next section of the webinar, which is the most awaited section. I think everyone is waiting for that. So allow me to get the stalwarts of the industry on the screen. Mr. Chaturvedi, I would like to request you to unmute yourself, sir. So maybe this particular section will be led by Mr. Chaturvedi on the panel discussion on Castor Oil Price Outlook 2022. I would request Mr. Chaturvedi to probably introduce the panel members while I actually add them onto the screen.
No, thank you, Harshal. In fact, you said this is the most important session, and this important session will have to reduce in size and time, because immediately after this we have to face the commerce and the food minister of the country on edible oil scenario. So this session, I'm sure, is going to be a short one, but I'll try and cover most of the points. As far as the introduction is concerned, so I'll do away with that introduction, but we have a very interesting panel. You have somebody from US, somebody from Europe, and India as well. So you get a bird's eye, and of course the lovely lady as well from China. So you get a bird's eye view of what exactly is happening in which part of the world. So first things first, I'll go straight to the question and answer session. Have you just heard the crop being declared? Now, my Indian friends, Abhayji, do you agree with the crop numbers? And in fact, Harshal, Shailesh presented in his presentation that the carry in this year is about 200,000 tons of castor seed. So do you agree with both these assessments?
Again, like last year, to me, the estimation by AgriWatch looks a bit optimistic. In my opinion, the optimism, I would say the crop could be around 10% lower than what AgriWatch has been presenting. 10, I would say, go to an extent of 10 to 15%. In fact, in the presentation, I'm sorry to say, but even in the calculations, it seems that they have made some errors, just going by their presentation. But again, this is my own estimation, and it is better to wait and see the next rounds of the Castor survey as they did last year. You recollect last year also, the crop estimation was 1.9 million tons, and ultimately it was brought down to about 1.775 or something around that. On the carry-in numbers, my estimation would be 150,000 tons as of 1st January 2022. And this we can, see, because, literally what we were getting into the crushing plant was literally the last sweeping that was coming from all the warehouses. So in my estimation, I think the crop, the carry-in could be about 150,000 tons.
Thank you. Deepakji, do you agree with these figures?
I agree with Abhay Bhai, and I don't agree with AgriWatch. I think, as we know, last week the Indian government came up with 15 lakh tons all over India. So, and even last year, the Indian government was moreover right in the crop number. So we may be 150,000 tons more than the Indian government estimate. So as per my view, we should be around 16.5 in the crop number.
And
carryover, I agree with Abhay Bhai, not more than 150,000 tons.
Our friend, you also very, very the Indian crop scenario.
Yeah.
So what is your take on this?
No comment on that.
Any comment on carry-in?
No comment.
Okay. Now, with a lower carry in and are likely to be a lower crop compared to what as was presented by the surveyors, how do you see the inventory level in India? This question is to Abhay-ji and then to Deepak, and then I will go to the international panel. Abhay-ji, what is your take on the inventory levels in the country? I think it's Deepak-ji, aap bataएं.
Yes, as per me, inventories in India and even in the destination in China, Europe, US, I think we are at the lowest inventory levels. And we all know that even in the NCDX, right now, we have only 8,000 tons of castor seed, which is all-time low. I mean, it's lowest in the last 8 to 9 years. And even the arrivals, what farmers are bringing after so high prices, I think even the farmers are holding, farmers are also at lowest inventory in the last 7-8 years.
You feel the inventory levels are low in India?
Yes.
Dennis.
Yes, Atulji.
Yeah, how do you see this scenario as far as Europe is concerned in terms of the inventory levels? Is Europe adequately covered or not adequately covered?
Can you hear me first?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Perfect. Okay. I think in terms of inventory, when we look at the stock in different places in Europe for oil and derivatives, and looking at what's on the way, I think we have quite decent inventories in Europe at the moment. So there is no real concern for the, let's say, 2 to 3 months. That would be the situation in Europe.
What's the take as far as US is concerned, Andrew?
Well, I would say that for bulk shipments, we are in good shape here in the US. Inventories are strong. However, there is a lot of coverage that needs to be done for container customers due to the high increase in freight rates. Many are not offering further out. They're not willing to speculate on what container freight rates are going to be going forward. And a lot of our customers are going hand to mouth on containers. So that is a bit of an area of concern going forward.
What's your take from Thailand?
Hi there. So my thought is that actually during this time of the year when it's starting to the harvest season already, usually people would be buying more. But because of the high price, I think people have been reluctant to buy. So they've been waiting for prices to drop. So I would say, in my view, that during this time of the year, I think inventories are lower than usual. And I think people are waiting and you can see that in the past, the prices have come up quite high and people have been forced to buy it, but only to buy just to keep the factories running and all that. But they expect to buy more once the prices go lower.
Which is not happening as of now. With the geopolitical risks increasing, that doesn't seem to be happening. Vivian, your comment.
I already showed the number in my presentation, but if you compare to past year of China inventory, this year may be slightly lower. If we see the current situation, that we feel that no more inventory.
So you agree with what you presented, or you don't agree with what you presented?
Of course, I agree with what I present.
Okay. Now we are facing a lot of geopolitical risks around us. And the prices of all things, all commodities is going through the roof. And I'm sure castor is no different. Do you think these high prices is going to reduce consumption in consuming countries? This question is to you, Andrew, because US seemed to be reasonably aggressive in buying castor oil last year. How do you see the scenario this year?
Yeah, in previous years, the prices of castor oil, I would say there'll be some diminishing buying, but things are a little different now. We're seeing across the board increases. So quite surprisingly, a lot of our customers understand that they're buying all their other products at higher prices, that castor is going to fall in line. Also, in the past, if because of soy and petro products are so high that there's no need to switch to castor. So I've been seeing, and I predict that castor will still be strong in the U.S.
Your take, Dennis?
Well, in terms of, with regards to your questions on the geopolitical situation, I would say that it very much depends how long this conflict will stay there. But the first reaction from the investors in this world would be just to plug off and wait and see. This will have some consequences on the industrials. The industrials will be cautious and will be like a bit more conservative. It will lead to some macroeconomics downward and micro. So in other words, if this conflict would be here to stay for, let's say, a few weeks or months, it would definitely meet some reduction in the consumption, and also for castor oil.
Okay. What's your take from Thailand, for Paul?
Yes, yeah. So regarding the conflict, my view is that there's no immediate direct effect on castor at the moment, but at the end it depends on how long the situation plays out and how long the conflict prolongs into. But in general, in terms of, we have to look at maybe other industries which are related to castor, but which could be impacted. So if you look at like maybe the automotive industry, immediate prices of oil have come up more than $100 per barrel. So you can see that could have an impact on the market for automobiles, and also the production costs for automobiles would also be up higher as well. And if you look at other things such as other raw materials used in manufacturing automobiles, like 12-HSA, which is used to produce grease, that can also have an impact if energy prices keep going up higher. And so production costs would be higher and less demand for cars. So I would see some indirect impact if the situation stays on for a while.
Any comments from you, Vivian?
Of course, I agree that also the three have to say about the high price must be impacted for demand. It will demand the whole chain of what's the downstream of the castors. Like if sapsic acid, so it's best user of castor oil. Now it's also a facing problem that the castor acid demand also in fact, and the castor sapsic acid downstream product also can be changed if castor oil is still going higher price. And in the small consumers, they are easy to change, switch from looking for other product who are able to instead. So it will be the big impact for the demand.
So now this question is to Abhay Bhai. In fact, Shailesh in his presentation expects India to be exporting about 7.25 lakh tons. Do you agree? Do you think that is going to be the trend this year? And also, do you think China will roar back? And secondly, will US be also having a robust demand, just like what it was last year?
Can you hear me? I have a little disturbance with my power situation here. You can hear, okay. In my opinion, the expectation per se, I was expecting 2022 to have a little softer demand by 5%. However, with crude oil prices being high and, current geopolitical situation, I would consider castor oil also as one of the strategic raw material for, in case of war, you need that, So I'm just imagining a little more. So as a strategic requirement in a geopolitical kind of a situation, demand may surprise on the upside. It's a possibility. My expectation is on the lower side, but with all this, information, it could surprise all of us.
Deepak Bhai, what is your take on the export numbers for the 2022?
Yeah. Atulji, if we go 10 days back, castor oil price almost touched $2,000, and soybean oil was roughly around $1,500. Palm was $1,500. Sunflower was $1,400. But in last 1 week, we have seen soya almost current price are almost touching $1,750. Palm is $1,750, and sunflower there are no offers from Argentina, from Ukraine and Russia. And castor oil today it's around $1,850. So the gap has almost decreased between vegetable oils and castor oil. And usually we have seen that castor oil stays $300, $400 higher roughly. So 10 days back, my view was that we may see 5%, 5 to 7% lower export. But if the vegetable oil prices stays at this level till first half of the year, then I think we may see the same number, same export as the last year.
So for the benefit of everyone here, the vegetable oil prices as far as India is concerned are not likely to cool too much for the simple reason that sunflower oil exports from Ukraine or Russia into India will be a big casualty, not only because of the war, but also because of the US sanctions. So no foreign bank and no Indian bank is now willing to open LCs. So to get compensated with sunflower oil from some other origin, not possible. Maybe marginally some Argentinian may come. So this would possibly result in demand shifting to palm oil and more to soya oil. So India is importing about 200 to 225,000 tons. So that can be also a little game changer as far as edible oil or by implication castor oil is concerned. Now I come to the main question, because we are racing against time. How do you see the castor oil prices going forward in the first half and in the second half? This question is to Andrew and then to everyone. How do you see the scenario, Andrew?
Okay, thank you. Pure speculation that once the seeds start coming in higher numbers, they'll put some pressure on pricing. Farmers, I think, are like the price now, but they're going to have to start liquidating at some point once they finish harvesting the other types of seeds like mustard seed. So if you're looking for a guess, I'm going to go about 1750, 1700 maybe FOB Moonja pricing, steadily climbing, and I think we could probably be back over the 2000 mark at the end of the year once we get close to that crop dwindling down, which also leads to more speculation in the market due to the lower liquidity.
So what you're saying is 1750 on the lower side and 3000.
Yep, and then by the end of the year
on the higher side.
Back over. Correct.
Wow.
2000.
So we are going to be revisiting 2011.
2000 US dollars per metric ton FOB.
Yeah, got it.
Which we.
Acha Paul, what's your take?
Yeah, so usually in the harvest season, I think prices like 2 years ago, 2020, prices would go down about $150, $200 if there's no delayed arrivals or no lockdowns in COVID or anything. But we've seen last year, prices have actually risen because of the COVID lockdowns. So if there's some delay, I think prices would go up, but then eventually they won't go down as usual. So they won't go down $150, $200. So last year went up to 1,600 and came down to around 1,000. Was it? 500. So only $100 during April and May during that season. So I expect that since there has been some delay, I think prices will maybe go down, but not as much as $200. So from this level at around 1900, let's say 1850. So I would also expect prices to go down to around maybe 1700, maybe lower than that, depending on if it starts going down, farmers start selling, then prices definitely would go down from here. And towards the end of the year, I think carryover is low because it's been used up, first few months and last year as well. So there's less carryover. There will definitely be the effect of seasonality. So at the end of the year, when there's less arrivals in the market, prices will shoot up. But I would only expect it to go back as usual. So maybe 1900, 20,000 at the most, around that level.
Dennis, your take? Quick one.
Yeah.
First half, second half.
We didn't have much chance to chat about the crops and the things on the international side. I think there are a few things I'd like to mention. First of all, that if I did my math correctly, if we have a crop of 825,000 tons based on 46% oil recovery on the seeds, which is the average from Geochem approximately. So 828,000 tons of oil plus a carry, which we would estimate around 103,000 tons. We should have a total crop of 931,000 tons for 2022. The demand, roughly speaking, is probably around 900,000 tons all in, out of which a large chunk for the exports. So oil exports would be probably around 690, 700,000 tons, all going well. Oil, 150 derivatives and 50,000 local demand. So we would have a surplus of around 30,000 tons of oil equivalent at the end of the year. Having said that, we have been talking a little bit about the carry. As you all know, the carry is something which is impossible to guess. Reason is that we don't have any historical data which is reliable. So this is a big mark. What we can see is that the quantity of arrivals on the market today are have been so far rather old seed or seeds from the NCDEX, which were not very good quality, which could mean that the new crop is not much available at this stage, but this is just an assumption. That's the first thing. So a decent crop. What we need to look as well in terms of crop is the yield per hectare. If you look back at the presentation from Arish Bhai from Royal on the sustainability of the Castor project in India, Arish was mentioning basic yields per hectare in Gujarat of around average 2.5 ton per hectare. AgriWatch reckoned on 2.3. So this is also something to keep in mind. Of course, there will be a revision in March about the crop. We will see what happens. Long story short, I would expect, and last thing, there is no correlation between edible oils and castor, even though sentiment can have, but edible oils shortage because of this sun oil, which will not be available for the Indian market as imports, cannot be substituted by castor. In other words, I don't expect that castor will be suffering too much from the issues on the edible oil market at this stage. So I would expect, and that's the reply to your question, Atul Bhai, that the prices should remain stable during the months of March, maybe April, and then we could see a drop to 1600 to 1700 levels during May, June. And then it's going to be a big question mark. It will depend on so many factors. It also depends very much on the evolution of this conflict. If it lasts longer than a few weeks, there might be some consequences on the demand, lower demand globally, which could turn positive for castor in the equation supply demand at the end of the year. So I would expect, it's a bit anybody's guess to give a price for the second half, but I would expect the price to reduce a little bit during May, June to $1,600 to $700 per ton.
Got it. Vivian, do you have any quick one on that?
Yeah.
The pricing.
In the short term, if we see the carry and the crop size, it depends short term what's the farmer. If we can see the stock almost 2 lakhs, we can count 0%. Then we can see the how much market yard, how much new seed is arrival. Can be understanding is how much stock they have or they don't have. And in the short term, now I think 2022 it depends our Indian farmers, their mentality, what price they are ready to bring the seed in the market, and how much they want to carry forward on. So it's not depends the stocker and the SDX stock and the speculators what they can do, because no seed can do nothing. So the farmer will be decide the short term and how much supply will goes there, and also have to see how what about the demand will support.
What do you see the first half price on the lower side?
We have
side?
no number for that.
Okay. Deepak ji, a quick one, just the answer, no explanation. How do you see castor seed prices?
I would like to give my numbers on the base of NCDX prices. I think 6,500 looks bottom to me, maybe below 6,500. Maybe if arrivals farmer selling is more, we may see 6,300 on the NCDX level. But that's the bottom level. And I think we may touch more than 7,500 plus in the second half of the year.
Do you think speculators will come into play or they will keep away?
No speculators. Farmers will play the major role. Bring the new crop in the market will decide the price pattern. And I think the Indian farmers' mentality has changed big time in the last 2 years.
Fair enough.
And and if you see the castor oil prices are at the, compared to soybean oil, it's very cheap. So we may see the local domestic demand shift, especially from the paint industry, moving in the castor.
What is your take? Quick one, Abhay ji, just the numbers. Do you agree with what Deepak said?
At exchange rate of 75, I would agree to a minimum in the short term, $1,750 to $2,000 range, as we are seeing now. And second half of the year, we will see some improvement in the prices. So we can expect, because of the lower crop, and it will all depend upon the monsoon development then, but you can expect to break the $2,000 level in the second half of the year.
Good. I think I'll have to say thank you to all my panelists here, because Mehta ji has started giving me the signals. You better close. And thank you very much. Mehta ji, over to you.
Thank you very much, all the panelist members and Mr. Chaturvedi for this wonderful panel session. Without wasting much time, I think I would now like to invite the brain behind this incredible global Castor webinar. I request Dr. B.V. Mehta, the Executive Director of Solvent Extractors Association of India, to express his word of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Mehta.
Thank you. It's my privilege and pleasure to propose vote of thanks on behalf of the Solvent Extractors of India. We are thankful to Professor Vijay Paul Sharma, Chairman CSCP, all speakers, panelists, participants from all over the world. We also sincerely thank all the supporting organizations, sponsors for Castor Crop Survey, and all the patrons of the webinar, and thank them for their wholehearted and active support in organizing this important global event in Castor. We convey our sincere thanks to the press and the electronic media for their valued presence and support in covering this event as an excellent manner. We are sure the presentation and the panel discussion took place today gave a lot of information to the buyers, traders, and others connected with the castor industry and take the right business decision at the right time. Lastly, I'm also happy to mention the nearly 40 participants have shown the interest to join SCA as a member. We would be sending them the complete membership details and look forward to their joining SEA. We thank you each and all of you once again for your participation, and good day and good night.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mehta. Once again, thank you everyone. Thank you participants, thank you panelists, thank you speakers. Thank you our patrons and supporters for your
Thank you so
sponsorship
much.
and for your support. We would like to thank everyone, and we look forward to see you soon in person. Thank you very much and take care. We'll be playing the videos again for people's benefit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Adani Wilmar.
A multi-billion-dollar company, Adani Wilmar Limited is a joint venture between the Adani Group of India and Wilmar International of Singapore. What drives Adani Wilmar is its vision to be a globally admired leader in integrated agribusiness with a deep commitment to nation building. It aims to be known for its scale of ambition, speed of execution, and quality of operation. Honoring its promise to give India the best foods, Adani Wilmar Limited has a range of food products under the famous brands. It has also given India its #1 edible oil brand, Fortune. The commissioning of India's very first port-based refinery at Mundra, Gujarat, was the stepping stone in Adani Wilmar's success story. The availability of cutting-edge infrastructure and its proximity to consumer markets made it a good choice to bridge the logistical gap between plants. Today, the unit also houses India's largest oleochemical plants that produces glycerine and soap noodles for pharma, cosmetics and rubber industries.
Who know that one of India's largest food companies is always thinking big and doing better. I'm confident that Adani Wilmar is ready to take new challenges, is steadily bringing innovation in food products and growing to transform the food industry in India. Thank you, Adani Wilmar, for a healthy, growing India.
Castor. For most, a seed which grows into a castor plant. For us, a seed which grows into saplings of thoughts, to a plant of sustainability, to the branches of opportunity, to the fruits of innovation, to nurture an industry. The Giant Agro Group has proved that when nourished with ideas, a castor seed can grow into a giant industry. An industry that can develop the needs of the future. An industry that can expand its arms to reach diverse sectors across the globe. This is India, the global market leader in production and supply of castor seed and castor oil. The NK Proteins Group of Company is a strong and emerging front-runner in the manufacturing and export of castor oil and its derivatives like hydrogenated castor oil, 12-hydroxystearic acid and ricinoleic acid. Our production plant is located at Kadi in Mehsana district of Gujarat state, which has the world's highest castor seed yield in kilograms per hectare. Our corporate headquarters is located in Ahmedabad, one of the country's most vibrant and important cities. With more than 2 decades of industry experience under our belt, we serve our customers around the world with high-quality products at competitive prices and prompt deliveries. Spread over an area of around 1 lakh square meters, our infrastructure boasts of 6 massive silos, 12 seed crushers for extraction of oil, oil decanters, vertical continuous solvent extraction plant, energy efficient hydrogenous plant, and an in-house quality control department with most advanced equipments like GLC and Carl Fisher. And our vision is to be the most competitive, reliable and preferred supplier of the full basket of castor oil and its derivatives around the globe.
This is Hengshui Jinhua Chemical Company Limited of China. We are devoted to the research and development of the bio-based materials to provide the world with green, eco-friendly, high-performance materials. We're one of the most important consumers in the world. We convert nearly 100,000 metric tons of castor oil by advanced technology to the product which is widely used in all aspects of our life. Welcome to Hengshui Jinhua Chemical Company Limited.